My name is Mai Lan Chen, a committee member of ISC67, and I'm going to be your host today.
ただいまより第67回国際学生会議成果発表会を開会いたします。本日は皆様お忙しい中ご来場いただき誠にありがとうございます。本日の司会進行を務めますのは第67回国際学生会議学術担当のマイ・ランちゃんと私代表のカンロンタムダムロンスントンシャイです。どうぞよろしくお願いいたします。
Before we begin with the opening speech of the final forum, please allow me to briefly explain today's agenda.
では、開会式を始める前に本日の式次第を簡単にご説明させていただきます。
Today's event will take place for around 3 hours, from 6 p.m. until 9 p.m. Japanese time. Right after this introduction, we will have an opening speech from the president of ISC67, and we will invite Mr. Ichiro Fujisaki, our guest of honor today, to deliver an opening remark. After that, we will have a brief presentation on the activity report of ISC67. From 6:40 onward, we will proceed to the presentation of each table. Today, we will begin with Table 1 and end with Table 5. During this segment, we will also have a 15 minutes break after Table 3's presentation.
はい、本日の成果発表会は日本時間の18時から21時まで約3時間にわたって開催されます。この説明の後、第67回国際学生会議代表による開会宣言をお届けし、その次に国際教育振興会参助会会長、藤崎一郎様よりご来賓のご挨拶をお迎えいたします。その後、第67回国際学生会議の活動報告をさせていただきます。18時40分からは各分科会による成果発表を行います。本日は分科会1から分科会5の順で進行させていただきます。なお、分科会3の発表の後、15分程度の休憩を設定しております。
After the student presentation, from 8 p.m. onwards, we would like to welcome our guest speakers on the stage for the guest lecture. First, we will have Mr. Yukio Takasu, the chairman of the NPO Forum on Human Security, who was previously the special advisor on human security to the United Nations Secretary General. Then, we will have Mr. Kohei Saito, an associate professor at Graduate School of Economics, Osaka City University, and the author of the best-selling book, Hito-Shinsei-no-Shihonron, which won the New Book Award in 2021.
各分科会による成果発表の後、20時からはゲストスピーカーの方々による基調講演へ進みます。まずは NPO 法人人間の安全保障フォーラム理事長、国連事務総長特別顧問をお務めになっている高須幸雄様をお迎えいたします。続きまして、大阪市立大学大学院経済学研究科准教授で2021年に新書大賞を受賞したベストセラー、Hito-Shinsei-no-Shihonronの著者、斉藤浩平様をお迎えいたします。
After the guest lectures, we will proceed to the closing ceremony with a closing speech from the president of ISC67, and we will end the event by 9 p.m. Japanese time. However, although the official part of today's event will end at 9 p.m., we will set up the time for a free interaction session until 9:30 p.m. So you are more than welcome to remain and meet the presenters as well as the committee members after the event.
基調講演の後、閉会式へ進み、第67回国際学生会議代表による閉会宣言をもって、21時に成果発表会を終了いたします。本会は21時に終了予定ですが、21時30分まで30分程度の自由歓談の時間も設定しておりますので、イベント終了後も Zoom に残っていただき、発表者や実行委員と交流していただくことも大歓迎です。
During the event, if you have any question or concern in English, please do not hesitate to contact Zui, who is raising his hand right now. He will assist you through the Zoom chat.
イベント中、ご質問やトラブルなどがございましたら、ただいま 挙手しております。ありがまでお声掛けください。日本語にてご対応いたします。ありがとうございます。
So without further ado, I would like to invite Kanlong Tam Damrong Sontonchai, the president of the ISC67 for the opening speech. The Japanese translation of the speech will be delivered by Masami Komatsu, the vice president.
さて、次に私の方から第67回国際学生会議代表による開会宣言をお届けし、成果発表会を開会させていただきたいと思います。日本語の翻訳は副代表の小松正美よりお伝えいたします。それではどうぞよろしくお願いいたします。On behalf of the committee members of ISC67, now I would like to call for the opening of the final forum of the 67th International Student Conference.
ただいまより第67回国際学生会議成果発表会を開催しますことをここに宣言させていただきます。
My name is Ming Kanlong Tam Damrong Suntonchai, the president of the 67th International Student Conference. It is our greatest pleasure and honor to welcome you all here today, despite being in online setting.
私は第67回国際学生会議代表のカンロンタム・ダムロンスントンシャイと申します。本日はオンラインではありますが、皆様をこの機会にお迎えできることを大変嬉しく思います。
First and foremost, please kindly allow me to briefly explain to you about our organization. International Student Conference, or ISC, is a student conference held annually since 1954, where students from around the world are invited to Japan each year for around 2 weeks to discuss solutions to global issues and engage in cultural exchange activities.
はじめに私たちの団体について簡単にご説明させていただきたいと思います。国際学生会議とは1954年に第1回を開催して以来、毎年国内外の学生を日本に招待し、学術交流と文化交流を中心とした会議を開催する学生団体でございます。
Our movement's mission is to achieve 4 things: discussion, action, resolution, and exchange.
私たちは議論、行動、解決、交流の4つを実現することを団体理念と掲げています。
Firstly, for discussion, we gather to exchange our ideas about various global issues. This year, we have 5 table topics presented by 5 table chiefs, all related to Sustainable Development Goals, or the SDGs. As participants exchange views with their fellow table members, they are expected to deepen their knowledge and expertise on each topic while remaining curious, critical, and creative throughout the process.
まず、議論では国際社会のさまざまな問題について意見交換を行います。本年度は国連の持続可能な開発目標 SDGs に関連した5つのテーブルトピックが5名のテーブルチーフによって設定されました。参加者は他のテーブルメンバーと意見交換をしながら、それぞれのトピックに関する知識や専門性を深め、その過程で好奇心、批判性、創造性を発揮することが求められます。
Secondly, we plan to turn our discussions into action by presenting the discussion outcome to the general public with the hope to contribute meaningfully to the world. This year, we open possibilities for tables to present final outcome either in the form of a policy proposal, business plan, or a research paper to offer a concrete and innovative solution to their topic.
次に、私たちは理論の成果を社会に発信し、理論を行動に移し、国際社会に有意義な貢献をしたいと考えております。本年度の活動において、各分科会がテーマに対する具体的な解決策を提言するために、政策提言書、ビジネスプラン、研究論文などのいずれかの形で最終成果物を作成してもらうよう設定いたしました。
Thirdly, we also hope for our discussions and actions to resolve some of the world's most difficult challenges as we raise the voices of young people worldwide and present the potential of the future generation to the general public.
また、世界中の若者の声を集め、次世代の潜在能力を社会に発信することで、私たちの理論や行動が世界が直面する課題の解決につながるように取り組んでおります。
Fourth and lastly, we hope for our participants to exchange their cultures and their unique experiences through our activities. Considering that we come from a diversity of backgrounds, there is so much that we can learn from each other.
最後に、様々なバックグラウンドを持つ私たちは、お互いに学べることがたくさんあると信じており、ISC での活動を通じて、参加者がお互いの文化やユニークな人生経験を交流できると信じ、活動しております。
However, as the ongoing pandemic has profoundly changed the way we live, our interactions have become vastly limited, and what we took for granted suddenly became unavailable. Against such a backdrop, the committee members at ISC67 aspired to turn this crisis into an opportunity by connecting like-minded youths across the world through what we call the ISC experience. Hoping to transcend what has kept us apart this year, therefore, we came up with the theme, New Normal, Unity Without Boundaries, for this year's conference.
しかし、新型コロナウイルス感染症の大流行により、私たちの生活は大きく変化し、交流の場が大幅に限られ、今まで当たり前だと思っていたことも突然できなくなってしまいました。そんな中、私たち実行委員は、この危機を機会に変えようと、志を同じくする世界各地の若者を結びつけようと考えました。私たちの間にある隔たりを越えていきたいという意味を込め、ニューノーマル、国境を越えた団結へを本年度の総合テーマに掲げました。
Although we had initially planned our conference to be in person, we had to move our activities online this year since our health and safety are more important than anything else. Nevertheless, we hope to create a platform for youths worldwide to discuss and take action for our future together, even during a difficult time such as now.
当初は例年通り対面にて会議を開催する予定ではありましたが、参加者の健康、安全を第一に考慮した結果、活動の場をオンラインに移行せざるを得なくなりました。しかし私たちは今のような困難な時期であっても、世界各地の若者と議論し、明るい未来を描くためのプラットフォームを作りたいと考えました。
Despite the challenges, our gathering this year was able to kindle new initiatives and generate new ideas for the various ongoing social issues. I would like to deeply thank everybody for their kind understanding and cooperation with our tough decisions made this year.
オンラインで活動を進めるにあたって課題点は多くありました。本年度の本会議では、現在国際社会が直面する課題に対して、新たな取り組みやアイデアを生み出すことができたのではないかと考えております。参加者並びに支援者の皆様には、本年度の活動様式と弊団体の決断にご理解とご協力をいただき、深く感謝しております。
I truly hope that ISC67 has been able to offer an opportunity for all of our participants to exchange ideas and think deeply about what we can do as youth who shape the future of the world.
参加者の皆さんにとって、ここ4ヶ月の活動が世界の未来を担う若者として何ができるのかを考える機会となりましたら大変光栄です。
With the end of my opening speech, I very much hope that this final forum today will be a fruitful experience for all of you. Lastly, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to all of those who have supported and been a vital part of this year's 67th International Student Conference.
さて、この成果発表会が皆様にとって有利な時間となりましたら幸いでございます。最後になりますが、第67回国際学生会議の開催を支えていただいた多くの方々に心より感謝申し上げまして、開会の挨拶とさせていただきます。ありがとうございました。
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your opening speech. I truly hope that this final forum will be a fruitful experience for all of you too. Next, we would like to invite Mr. Ichiro Fujisaki, the chairperson of the International Education Center Supporter Association Board, who is a special guest of honor today.
ありがとうございました。さて、次に国際教育振興会参助会会長の藤崎一郎様よりご来賓のご挨拶をいただきたいと思います。
今ごしょ
少々お待ちください。すいません。
すいません。Before that, we would like to give you a brief introduction of Mr. Fujisaki.
はい、まずは藤崎一郎様のご略歴のご紹介を簡単に説明させていただきます。
Mr. Fujisaki is currently the president of Nakasone Peace Institute and president of the America-Japan Society of Japan. He had been a Japanese diplomat who served as the ambassador to the United States from 2008 to 2012. Before that, he was the ambassador to the United Nations and the World Trade Organization in Geneva, as well as the chairman of the Executive Committee of the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. His other position includes term as Deputy Director General for Asian Affairs, Political Minister of the Embassy of Japan in Washington, D.C., and Director General for North American Affairs before being appointed as the Deputy Foreign Minister. Mr. Fujisaki studied at Keio University, Brown University, and Stanford University Graduate School.
はい、藤崎一郎様は1969年に外務省に入省されました。アジア局参事官、在米大使館公使を経て、1999年に北米局長、2002年に外務審議官、2005年に在ジュネーブ、国際機関、日本政府大副部大使、2008年に在米大使を歴任され、2012年に退官されました。2013年から2017年まで、上智大学特別招聘教授をお務めになりました。現在、日米協会会長、中曽根平和研究所理事長、北鎌倉女子学園理事長などを務めていらっしゃいます。また、慶応大学、ブラウン大学、スタンフォード大学院にて学ばれました。
Thank you, Mr. Fujisaki, for joining us today.
先ほど忘れいたしました。それでは藤崎一郎様、ご来賓のご挨拶をお願い申し上げます。
Thank you very much for having me today. Congratulations for the 67th International Student Conference. 今回はお招きいただきましてありがとうございました。67回、国際学生会議総会おめでとうございます。Students, I'd like to ask you, you are faced with 3 challenges. Capital 3 letters, GDP. What's that? 今、この参加者の学生さんたちは GDP というチャレンジに直面しています。さて、何のことでしょうか？ It's not gross domestic products, GDP. 国内総生産の GDP ではありません。あるいは、カンロンダムロンスントンシャイさん、It's not gold, diamond or platinum. お好きかもしれないけれど、金とかダイヤモンド、プラチナでもございません。この GDP チャレンジというのは、そういうもんじゃございません。What of the GDP? The first G stands for global warming. D for 2 things, democracy and discrepancy. P for pandemic. You all know. GDP は国際的な気候の温暖化、グローバルウォーミング、それから民主主義、デモクラシーの危機、それから格差社会のディスクレパンシーの D、それからパンデミックの P、この GDP です。これは世界が今直面している大きな問題ですね。で、このためには3つのことが必要です。3 things are needed to face these challenges. 3 C's I would make it to in a very short manner. Concentration, collaboration, and continuation. この危機に直面するためには3つの C が必要です。その C は集中の concentration、協力 collaboration、それから継続の continuations。Why? It's because it's a matter of urgency. You need really concentration. You cannot do it alone. One country cannot do alone, so collaboration is needed. Third, it will not go away right away. You have to continue. Long time. So that's the continuation. これは 差し迫った危機ですから、まさに力を集中させるコンセントレーションが必要であり、一カ国一人ではどうにもならない。したがって多国間の協力が必要なのでコラボレーション。そしてすぐ片付く問題ではない。コンティニュエーションが必要です。So, please remember, in short, in order to meet this GDP challenge, global warming, democracy, discrepancy, and pandemic, you need 3 C's: concentration, collaboration, and continuation. I'm sure that all of you will try to find good answer from your discussion, but you cannot solve it in one meeting. Please do contact with each other and continue your efforts. Again, I would like to wish all the success in the meeting. 皆様方が1回の会合でこの問題を片付けられるわけではありません。引き続きずっと継続していく必要があります。しかし、この ISC というのは素晴らしい、試みでございますので、ぜひこの会合を通じていい解決を探し、そして継続的に努力をしていただきたいと思います。今日はどうもありがとうございました。皆様方のご成功を祈ります。失礼いたします。Thank you very much. Bye bye. Great success.
Thank you, Mr. Fujisaki, for your wonderful remark and your kind words of encouragement.
藤崎様、ご来賓のご挨拶を賜り、誠にありがとうございました。藤崎様のお言葉に大変感銘を受けました。また、国際学生会議の、活動を温かくご支援いただき、実行委員一同深く感謝しております。ありがとうございました。
関論タムさん、ごめんなさいね。くだらない冗談を言ってる。だけど、どうもありがとうございました。ぜひ頑張ってください。私が知ってる外国人の中で一番日本語のお上手な方ですから、ぜひ。さっき英語を使っておられるのを聞いてびっくりしました。日本語だけの人かと思ってた。ぜひ、なんかタイ語もできるそうですから素晴らしいんで、ぜひ頑張ってください。
それいります。ありがとうございます。
どうもありがとうございました。さよなら。
ありがとうございました。
ありがとうございます。
Our guest of honor today.
Thank you very much. Now we would like to proceed to the activity report of ISC67.
はい、ただいまより第67回国際学生会議の活動報告へ移ってまいります。
The main conference this year was held over a period of 4 months, from May to August 2021. This year, we have expanded what would have been packed in 2 weeks into a span of 4 months.
はい、第67回国際学生会議の本会議は、2021年5月から8月までの4ヶ月間にわたり開催されました。本年度の活動におきまして、例年では2週間の本会議で実施してきた内容を、今年では4ヶ月間に拡大して実施してまいりました。
On May 15 and 16, we held the opening ceremony of the advanced conference and the main conference simultaneously, and welcomed more than 50 new participants from all over the world.
5月15日と5月16日の2日間にわたり、第67回国際会議は事前招集会をオンラインで開催いたしました。そして5月15日に事前招集会と本会議の開会式を同時に開催し、世界各地から50名以上の新しい参加者を無事に迎えることができました。
At first, we had planned to organize the advanced conference in person, but we have decided to relocate the event online, following the state of emergency in Tokyo and other major cities in May.
当初、事前招集会を対面にて開催する予定ではありましたが、5月に発令された緊急事態宣言を受け、オンラインでの開催に変更いたしました。
Besides cultural exchange activity, we included academic exchange activity based on tables, which allow participants to meet each other for the first time and deepen their ties within their table.
事前招集会では、アイスブレイクや、文化交流企画のほか、分科会ごとに学術交流を行い、参加 参加者同士が初めて顔を合わせ、親睦を深めることができました。
After that, each table has been discussing their topics in the monthly study sessions between May and July. In addition to those sessions, some table chiefs also held optional sessions periodically.
その後、それぞれの分科会は5月から7月までの期間中、月例勉強会を通じて各自のテーブルトピックについて議論を重ねてまいりました。なお、月例勉強会以外にも随時テーブルチーフが任意参加のセッションを実施することもございました。
Furthermore, we held various cultural exchange programs to deepen the friendship among all participants, as the overall theme of the ISC67 Unity Without Boundaries.
学術交流以外にも、今年の総合テーマが国境を越えた団結へであることから、参加者全員が親睦を深めることができるさまざまな文化交流企画を開催してまいりました。
At the interim report day, held on August 7, each table presented the progress of their discussion in front of other tables and exchanged feedback to improve their final product. On the same day, we also held an online quiz competition to encourage interaction among our participants.
また、8月7日開催の中間報告会インターリムレポートでは、各分科会における議論の進捗や最終成果物の作成状況を他の分科会の前で発表してもらい、相互フィードバックの時間を設定させていただきました。同日、リクリエーションを実施し、オンラインアプリを活用したクイズ大会を実施し、参加者同士の交流を促しました。
The period from August 8 to 21st was designated as a period of intensive table meeting, during which each table focused all its energy to create final products and prepare presentations for today's final forum.
なお、8月8日から21日までは集中分科会期間と定め、各分科会は最終成果物の作成や本日の成果発表会での発表準備に励んでまいりました。
Today's presentation will be the final stage for our participants this year. They will present what they have discussed, what they have learned, and what kind of change they would like to promote in society through their final presentation.
そして本日の成果発表会が参加者にとって本年度の活動においての最後の舞台となります。参加者たちが議論した内容や学んだこと、社会にどのような変化を与えたいかについて皆様の前で発表させていただきます。
Although this was the first attempt to hold the event online, all the organizing committee members were very happy that students from all over the world were able to deepen their friendship through various exchange programs.
今年は初の試みとなるオンライン開催でしたが、世界各地から参加した学生たちが各種文化交流企画を通じて、親睦を深めることができ、実行委員一同大変嬉しく思っております。
We will update our activities report later through our yearly business report, as well as on our homepage. Please stay tuned for more updates, and thank you very much for your kind support this year.
詳細にての活動報告は後日、事業報告書およびホームページなどにて、更新してまいります。第67回国際学生会議の活動を温かく見守っていただき、誠にありがとうございました。さて、それでは次に、障害担当のありがと私より弊団体の活動に多大なるお力添えをいただいております法人、個人の皆様のご紹介に移らせていただきます。From now on, Yuka from the External Affairs team and I myself would like to introduce all the sponsors who have supported us throughout this year.
障害担当のありがとう申します。はじめにご講演いただきました方々をご紹介いたします。外務省様、文部科学省様、以上の方々よりご講演をいただきました。
Firstly, we would like to introduce our official supporters. This year, we are officially supported by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Japan and the Ministry of Education, Culture, Sports, Science, and Technology, or MIXT of Japan.
続きまして、ご協賛いただきました企業様をご紹介させていただきます。株式会社トランスアクト様、帝人株式会社様、ノモン株式会社様、株式会社エックス都市研究所様、株式会社ミライング様、株式会社ボーダレスジャパン様、以上の方々よりご協賛いただきました。また、CRR グローバルジャパン合同会社様よりワークショップ開催にご協力いただきました。
Next, we would like to introduce the companies which sponsored ISC67. This year, we have acquired corporate sponsorships from various companies, including Transact Company Ltd, Teijin Ltd, Noman Company Ltd, Ex Research Institute Ltd, Mirai Incorporation, and Borderless Japan Corporation. In addition, CRR Global Japan Incorporated cooperated in organizing our workshop.
続きまして、ご支援いただきました財団様もご紹介いたします。国際教育振興会三女会様、一般社団法人 MRA ハウス様、双日国際交流財団様、三菱 UFJ 国際財団様、以上の方々よりご支援いただきました。
Next, we will introduce the foundations which subsidize our activities. This year, we have gathered patronage from various foundations, including International Education Center Supporters Association Board, MRA Foundation, Sojitz Foundation, and Mitsubishi UFJ Foundation.
また、昨年度に引き続き、今年は4月21日から5月9日までクラウドファンディング企画を実施いたしました。皆様の温かいご支援のおかげで、総額51万4000円の資金を集めることができました。当クラウドファンディング企画にご支援いただきました方々も合わせてご紹介させていただきます。株式会社北進様、一進アムステルダム様、SDGs アイテクスポ様、石田博様、左源様、北島高次様、駒谷武様、また多くの ISC OBOG の方々をはじめ、合計40名の方々にご支援をいただきました。
This year, we also carried out the crowdfunding project from April 21st until May 19th. Thanks to all of your support, we were able to raise the total amount of 514,000 yen. This year, we have received support from a total of 40 sponsors via crowdfunding project, including Hokushin Company Ltd, Ishin Amsterdam, SDGs Aichi Expo, Mr. Hiroshi Ishida, Mr. Gen Hidari, Mr. Takatsugu Kitajima, Mr. Takeshi Komatani, as well as ISC alumni whose participation at ISC spans across multiple generations.
本年度は竹川勝春様、石塚啓太様、中島秀明様をはじめ、多くの方々より寄付金でのご支援もいただきました。
Moreover, we have received kind support from many donors through donations, including Mr. Katsuharu Takekawa, Mr. Keita Ishizuka, and Mr. Hideaki Nakajima.
本年度の学術交流企画におきましては、多角的な視点を取り入れた質の高い議論を実現するため、各トピックに精通するメンターの方々や、現場で活躍される方々をお招きし、専門領域の視点から各分科会の活動へご指導ご助力いただきました。
In this year's academic exchange program, to achieve a higher level of discussion, we have invited mentors and guest speakers who are well-versed in each topic to guide each table's activities from the perspective of their specialized fields. ISC67 would not have been possible without the kind support and assistance from all of our sponsors and partners. We would like to express our deepest gratitude to all of you who have been a vital part of our activities this year.
第67回国際学生会議は皆様のご支援とご協力より実現されました。この場をお借りしましてご支援いただいた皆様に深くお礼申し上げます。誠にありがとうございました。
ありがとうございました。
This is the end of our activity report. Next, we would like to move on to the presentation from all 5 tables.
以上、本年度の活動報告でした。これより各分科会による成果発表に移ってまいります。
In today's presentation, each table will present the final outcome of their chosen topic. This year, we have 5 topics related to 5 different sustainable development goals, namely, goal number 2, zero hunger, number 8, decent work and economic growth, number 11, sustainable cities and communities, and lastly, number 16, peace, justice, and strong institutions.
本日の発表会では、各分科会が設定したトピックの研究成果を発表いたします。本年度は持続可能な開発目標、通称 SDGs の17のゴールに関連した5つのテーマが設定されております。具体的には、目標2の飢餓をゼロに、目標8の働きがいも経済成長も、目標11の住み続けられるまちづくり、そして目標16の平和と公正をすべての人にです。
Each table is led by very passionate table chiefs who are motivated to spread awareness and are willing to take initiative in encouraging people to collaborate and make a change. Together with a participant coming from various parts of the world, they all aim at finding solutions to our existing problems with the hope of bringing positive impact to the global society.
各分科会のトピックはテーブルチーフが率いています。彼らはトピックに対する問題意識を広めようとする意欲があり、人々が共同して社会に変革を起こすために分科会を率先してまいりました。世界各地から集まった参加者とともに、社会にポジティブな変化をもたらすことを願いながら、社会課題への解決策を発見することを目指しております。
The order of the presentation is from table 1 to 5, and we will have a short break after table 3 presentation.
はい、以前ご案内いたしましたように、発表の順番は分科会1から5までとなっております。また、分科会3の発表後、15分程度の休憩時間を設けております。
We would now like to begin with table 1.
それではまず分科会1からのプレゼンテーションを始めたいと思います。
First of all, we will start the presentation from table 1 entitled Political Activism and Participation, Why They Take Part in Politics. Table 1 has been researching ways to increase political participation by focusing on the youth in Japan. Their key focus has been on the education sector and how improvement can be made to raise political awareness, starting from the production of educational curricula that highlights politics. To delve deeper, they have split into 3 trials and have tackled an even more specific topic. The first group took up the urban versus rural divide, digital divide, and gender inequality. The second group took up ethical politics, protests, and global citizen education. Lastly, the third group took up practical involvements, social media, and political literacy. Although abundant, each is concise and has been scrutinized comprehensively by the table.
はじめにテーブル1、アクティビズムと政治参加、政治参加のなぜによる発表をお届けいたします。本会議での活動にて、彼らは日本の若者に焦点を当て、政治参加を促進する方法を研究してまいりました。政治意識を高めるためにはどのような改善ができるかを考え、教育分野における解決策について議論を重ねてまいりました。また、より深く掘り下げるために、3つに分かれた班にて、各々がさらに具体的なテーマに取り組んでまいりました。1つ目の班は、都市と農村や男女における格差。2つ目の班は、倫理的政治およびグローバルシティズンエデュケーション。そして3つ目の班は、ソーシャルメディアおよびポリティカルリテラシーについて研究活動を行ってまいりました。内容の幅は広いかと思いますが、皆様にとって興味深い内容だと確信しておりますので、ぜひお楽しみくださいませ。それではテーブル1の皆さん、よろしくお願いいたします。Table 1 members, the floor is yours.
Hello, thank you very much, Ming and Lan. Hello, everyone. My name is Sarah. I am the table chief of Table 1. It is my honor today to be able to present on behalf of Table 1 and what we have been working on. So with that said, I would like to share my screen. All right. Okay, hopefully everybody can see this. All right, we will get started. So this is Table 1's final forum presentation. So as was mentioned in the introduction, we tackled the topic of political participation, ex-education, meaning that we first started with the wide topic of political participation. However, throughout further research, we've decided to target this specific sector of education to further concise and make sure that our research was well-researched and very deep enough so that we could cover, again, a wide spectrum of topics within the subset of education. And this is just roughly our table of contents of the proposal itself. I won't read the whole list, but the main components of our policy proposal is in the middle here, the literature review, findings, and policy proposal. This is the main part of our policy proposal, and this is the part that our table members took part in the most, from research all the way to summarizing and concluding their findings. The policy proposal itself, as mentioned in the introduction, we have taken political participation as a very wide topic, and then we took education. So we narrowed that topic a bit and then further narrowed it by splitting our group into three further subsections. The subsections are as follows. The first one is the urban versus rural divide, digital divide, and gender inequality. As you can see, this subsection tackles inequality in general through looking at three case studies and examples that we see most prominent in our societies today. The second subsection, ethical politics, protests, and global citizenship education. As you can see, this one, although three topics are merged into one, this is also one where they all kind of fuse together very well, talks about ethical politics, ethics, and how that plays into our political systems currently, as well as this global citizenship education, which has become more pertinent now more than ever. Lastly, we have subset 3, which is practical involvement, social media, and political literacy. This was a topic that felt, again, especially pertinent now, especially the social media here. We've seen throughout even the course of the past 2 years, especially how social media has greatly impacted how youth members participate in politics and how it's become an extreme platform. Very useful platform where people are able to engage in politics from the comfort of their home. So social media has been a very big topic, and we're very glad we were able to cover it in this third subtopic. And this is just a quick overview of how roles were distributed, so how we divided and conquered. This is just a rough way to show the table of contents from earlier, with who was assigned to what and what we partook in throughout the course of the conference and the months that followed the advanced conference. And without further ado, and with this said, I'd like to pass it on to our first table member speaking, Rasha, for subsection 1.
Thank you very much, Sarah. In our policy proposal, we focus on the long-standing issue of urban versus rural, digital divide, and gender inequality in political participation. Scholars have argued that it is not that men participate more than women, but rather both genders participate in different forms. Furthermore, in an environment where socioeconomic characteristics and political attitudes were controlled, it was found that women are more likely to participate than men. Comparing the data from the 2004 International Social Survey Program to the statistics in Japan Nippon Foundation, we found out that the country's culture has influenced gender roles in Japanese society, making it harder for women to actively participate in political activities. Japan must consider undergoing a cultural transformation in order to close the gender gap in political participation. With this in mind, we have created our policy proposal, which centers around 3 points, which we call 3 I's. This policy aims to shed light on the importance of accessibility, quality education, and gender equality in political participation in the advancement of Japan as a more unified and politically vocal nation by first, increasing access in terms of the internet and other media to encourage people to participate more. Second, investing in organizations and educational institutions to effectively address the lack of political participation. We propose modifying current educational curriculums in primary and secondary institutions in a way to raise political interest within the younger generation. Lastly, implementing empowerment programs to positively impact political attitudes of women and youth alike. We propose to organizations to create programs similar to the USAID's Global Women Leadership Program that provides skill building and leadership training to increase the representation rate of women in government offices. With these plans, we hope to bridge the gap of gender, rural, urban, and digital one step at a time. To introduce the next topic, we have JM.
Thank you, Rasha. And for ethical politics, protests, and global citizenship education, we have focused on the discipline of education. And to relate it to the political participation, we have specified it to the citizenship education. And that's why you can see on our literature review, we have found out that citizenship education in Japan has been lagging for more than 40 years behind the world. This is despite of the wave of the educational reforms that has happened in Japan in the years 1947 and 2006. With the allowance of the Japanese government to allow the Japanese youth of the right to suffrage in 2015, it is then hoped that the political literacy of these societal sectors, especially the youth, to be improved. However, it has been concluded in the findings that only 51% and 33% of the Japanese youth were able to vote in the 2016 House of Councilors election and the 2017 Japanese national election. And with the statements that we have gathered from the literature review about the reasons why citizenship education in Japan remains below average, we have found out that educational approach in the country is one huge factor about this issue. To further address this issue, we propose a proposal that will uplift the citizenship education in Japan, which is to be discussed by Maine.
Our policy proposal aims to increase political interest and participation through the promotion of global citizenship education in learning ethical politics to optimize the current political subject for high school students in Japan. Our action plans include introducing the globalizing morality, human rights education, and global citizenship education to the existing political subject as mandatory class. Also, to hold public forums of politicians and high school students like the Model Political Conference and other youth forums supported by local governments. Learning civil disobedience in joining peaceful protests. Lastly, including refining Japanese political subject textbooks with both the East and West political sources. Thank you, and I will pass it to Yoko.
Thank you, May. Our section relates to practical involvement, social media, and political literacy. The literature Young People Turn to Online Political Engagement During COVID-19 examines and measures the political participation of young people on social media platforms. The analysis of the study shows that 70% of young people learn about the 2020 election through social media platforms. However, youth who get such political information tend to be constituted by who are more likely to have gone to college or who are more likely to identify as Democrats. Considering that equal provision of the information must be promised to every person who has rights to take part in political engagement, the significant issue is to devise the way of prevailing political information to people as equally as possible. Moreover, according to the analysis, only 36% of the young posted political content on their pages, referring that there are still many of youth who hesitate to claim political opinions online just because they feel like not being qualified to do so, even though looking at political content and sharing opinions have been common. However, the study also mentions that almost two-thirds of youth who make their voice on social media or who create political content online admit that they feel like being more engaged in social movements than before. Thus, facilitating more young people to make their own voice could be a clue to settle the situation. As for policy proposal, moving on to Vlada.
Thank you, Yoko. So from the research, we have found out that many young people do not voice their opinions on politics or do not create political content on social media because they feel not qualified enough to do so. And from the studies, it is also noticeable that social media platforms are becoming a space for youth to voice their opinions, especially during the pandemic. Therefore, We are proposing an online school program that would focus on political literacy and political social media creation. We believe that with such an initiative, we'll provide youth with more knowledge on important topics, make them feel more confident and more motivated to create and share political social media content. And now off to Sarah.
Thank you very much, Vlada and everybody else. I'd just like to summarize very quickly here to reiterate the reason why our group partook in this topic of political participation, specifically within the education sector, is because it was very unanimous. We all felt very passionate about political awareness and activism, especially with the state of our political states right now in worldwide, really globally. And so it was very important that we shed light on this issue and ways that we can increase political participation, not just in Japan, but also outside of Japan as well on a very global scale. I'd like to take this time to just give a quick shout out and a very big thank you to all of my team members and also our two sub-table chiefs. And for all of your hard work and everybody's collaboration within this project. So thank you very much. That is all from Table 1.
Thank you, Table 1, for your presentation. We have sent the feedback form in the chat, so please take a moment to fill in.
発表ありがとうございました。テーブル1のアンケートを、Zoom のチャットにてお送りいたしましたので、ぜひご協力いただきますようお願いいたします。
Furthermore, Table 1 has received the supportive mentorship from Professor Timothy Soul from the School of International Liberal Study, Waseda University. Thank you very much for your tremendous support.
なお、テーブル1の活動では、早稲田大学国際教養学部、ティモシー・スール先生より、メンターとしてのお力添えをいただきました。この場を借りて御礼を申し上げます。
Next, we would like to move on to the presentation from Table 2, entitled Nuclear Politics, What We Can Do for a World Free of Nuclear Weapons. Even in the 21st century, nuclear weapons continue to play a considerable role in international relations. Table 2 has sought ways to rethink the status quo surrounding nuclear weapons on a zero basis. The participants with various backgrounds have joined discussion from India, Vietnam, Taiwan, Brazil, Chile, and Japan. In addition to monthly sessions, they have talked with various professionals in the field, such as a university professor, activist, and former cleanup veteran. As a result, they have produced a policy proposal for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Japan. From now on, Table 2 will show you how youth think about the issue and what they wish the political entities to do.
次にテーブル2、核の政治、核なき世界のために私たちにできることによる発表をお届けいたします。21世紀の今日においても、核兵器は国際関係の中で非常に重要な役割を担っております。そのような現状を一から考え直す方法をテーブル2は模索してまいりました。インド、ベトナム、台湾、ブラジル、チリ、そして日本からさまざまなバックグラウンドを持った学生が集まり、議論を行ってまいりました。月例勉強会に加え、大学教授や活動家、除染作業に携わった元米国軍人など、多くの有識者からお話を伺うこともできました。その集大成として作成したのが、日本国外務省に向けた政策提言です。本日の発表を通して、若者が核問題に対してどう考えているのか、政府にどのような行動をとってほしいのか、肌で感じていただけたら幸いです。それではテーブル2の皆さん、よろしくお願いいたします。Table 2, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you to our excellent MCs. And yes, my name is Shinsaku Takikawa, the chief of Table 2 on nuclear politics, what we can do for a world free of nuclear weapons. We have produced a policy proposal toward the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Japan as a final outcome of our activities. I'm honored to present this proposal today, together with Mr. Bansal and Lin. Our policy proposal begins with an introduction part, introducing the structure of this proposal. We firstly provide some context related to nuclear weapons in the world. Next, we define the target area and problems to be addressed. Followingly, we make a proposal on what actions we use want the Japan MOFA to take. We also suggest two topics, disposal and colonialism, to be discussed at this institution. So starting with the background section. Excuse me. Oops. Excuse me for the disorganized. Yes. Starting from with the background of this issue, in today's world, approximately 13,080 nuclear warheads, including 3,825 deployed ones, are estimated to exist. In order to address this situation, the international community has enacted a lot of treaties as listed on the slide. Besides, nuclear weapon-free zones play a significant role in the discussions of nuclear disarmament. Bringing the focus onto a more specific region that includes Japan, the Asia Pacific has several organizations that address nuclear weapons issues, such as ASEAN+3, APEC, the Council for Security Cooperation in the Asia Pacific, CSCAP, Six-Party Talks, and the Ulaanbaatar Dialogue. However, we argue that Japan and neighboring countries seem not ready to even discuss the issues of nuclear weapons because the region lacks a regional institution for conflict resolution that can be seen in other regions of the world. In addition, the existing institutions mentioned earlier are not attended by the countries sacrificed for nuclear testing, such as Marshall Islands, as perpetual members. So they could lack perspectives of populations most affected by nuclear weapons. In a report, the Japanese government actually recognizes the need for promotion of nuclear non-proliferation and disarmament in the context of regional security. However, this situation, lacking a regional platform for dialogue, could be a hindrance to the realization of such plans. In order to address these issues, we propose establishing a complete regional mechanism for the resolution of security and nuclear issues between countries. Let me explain the steps toward this goal and limitations of this strategy. First, the regional mechanism will include the entire Asia-Pacific region. This is because this area includes 4 nuclear weapon-free zones, which will contribute to adding perspectives on denuclearization. The precedents could include the Organization of American States, OAS, and the Council of Europe, COE. The platform should be dedicated to promoting regional good faith and thus creating the sense of secureness in the region and diplomatic channels for emergency calls. We believe that this strategy will result in extending perspectives toward the nuclear big picture. Next, the actual steps to be taken should begin with one country taking the lead, which we hope Japan will do. Specifically, small localized negotiations appear most reasonable to firstly solidify basic understanding of nuclear weapons issues. Followingly, further large dialogues should happen on the initiation of legally binding mechanisms and instruments. With these foundations being set, we finally expect the birth of a formal institution for constant discussions among the Asia-Pacific countries. In the longer term, we suggest progressing the discussions toward the eventual creation of a nuclear weapon-free zone. However, this strategy could also face some limitations, which is important to note here. The limitations include the obstacles of cultural and political differences, leading to potential polarization on the platform. For example, the region might experience regional incoherence owing to the US nuclear umbrella in Asia and DPRK's nuclear interest. Therefore, it seems considerably challenging to achieve denuclearization in this region in a short term. However, we believe that the strategy we have listed will contribute to the denuclearization of this region. So next, Mr. Banslow will discuss the specific topics to be discussed at this institution.
Okay, thank you so much, Chris. So basically with disposal, we came up with three major things, and today that's what I'm going to tell you about. One is the limitation of NPT, the Nuclear Proliferation Treaty itself. So 4 out of 9 nuclear states have not signed the treaty so far, and it actually turns out to be a major hindrance in limitizing the total cooperation towards disarmament. And this is one of the reasons what we felt could actually be dealt with if we could have a little bit more cooperation between the nuclear states, and if they agree to go for denuclearization or at least disposal or abide by the NPT combined or as collective. So getting to our second point, limitations in technology of disposal of nuclear materials. So we came up with these two major things amongst the limitations within the technology. The technology so far for disposal of nuclear materials has not been developed so much. And the two major things that usually nuclear states do when they dispose of nuclear weapons is to turn plutonium into MOX fuel. The process of doing that is actually adding uranium to plutonium that makes it MOX fuel, and the burning of this MOX fuel in nuclear reactors is called actinide burning. This is one of the processes which has been deemed a little bit more environmental friendly and long-term sustainable. However, the other method that most of the countries so far have been doing is burial, where you just simply dig a hole in the ground about 70 to 80 meters down, and you just put down the nuclear materials, cover it with a crater, but it actually comes with a risk, which is what I'm going to talk about. So burial process itself is very expensive. It cost the United States of upwards of $60 billion. It took them about 40 to 60 years on an estimate to see these nuclear materials getting disposed within the environment. And we see risk of Marshall Islands again, with the Rennet Islands and the craters leaking within the oceans. And that is why we feel that burial itself can be very dangerous for the environment. And that is why we have come up with what can actually be the future of disposal in the third point, and what can be the pragmatic alternative. So of course, we know with the limited technology, the only alternative we have at this moment is actinide burning. That means we will have to find a way where we can burn that much fuel. Well, the problem is that even with the NPT in 51 years, we've seen there is a drastic fall in the total number of nuclear weapons. However, the quantity of plutonium that is left after decomposing or decommissioning these weapons still remains. And that is why we need other friendly countries to come up and to use the plutonium as MOX fuel and burn it into their nuclear reactors, for which we feel that countries with resources and technologies can cooperate towards developing more cost-effective and environment-friendly disposal practices, firstly, and secondly, they can come up together. For example, countries like Japan, which do not possess any nuclear weapons, however, have an expertise in civil nuclear technology, should work towards developing and constructing nuclear power plants in developing countries which are energy hungry or which do not have adequate resources for energy, but still are developing economies and can use nuclear power plants for that use. And third, coming to efforts towards making the transportation and use of MX fuel as safe as possible to avoid preventable disasters like the ones we've seen in the Fukushima leak, or we have seen the radiation leaks in a lot of Marshall Islands or other craters all around the world. And that is why we feel that this can be the future of disposal. Now, I would like to call upon Lynn for his, for his colonialism and education presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Bansal. So nuclearism is tightly connected to colonialism. Nuclear colonialism happens not only from the actual deployment of nuclear weapons, but rather starts from the very root of the nuclear industry. For example, the mining and the enriching of uranium is happening in marginalized Black and indigenous communities in the United States and in African nations, especially that in Niger. The national resources put into the maintenance of nuclear weapons could have been used otherwise for social release for these communities, as we argue. Due to the effect of NIMBYism, nuclear waste left over by the industry is often stored in the land and marginalized, sometimes indigenous communities, as in the case of the Dao people under Taiwanese current administrations. Most importantly, the testing of nuclear weapons significantly impacted the indigenous communities around the Asia-Pacific region. United States, for example, tested 67 nuclear weapons in the Marshall Islands, causing the removal of Marshallese people from their ancestral land, an intergenerational health problem that is even still around today. Next page, please. Japan was once a prominent colonizers in the Asia-Pacific region. However, Japan also had a history of nuclear suffering mutual to these communities. We therefore propose that Japanese government and youth learn from both its history of colonization and nuclear suffering and utilize the agency of reckoning to relate and facilitate cooperations and dialogue in the Asia-Pacific region. The year 2021 is the 76th anniversary of the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. This year, as a table, we propose that Japan takes the initiative of creating a regional platform, or better, institution for dialogue dedicated to nuclear weapons issues in the Asia-Pacific region, especially that in Northeast Asia. We hope that the specific topics of disposal and colonialism be discussed in the platform of proposal. This finally, as a table 2 envisages Japan secured by regional trust and cooperation rather than the deadly threat of nuclear weapons. And this is the end of our presentation. Thank you for your patience and sorry for the overtime.
Thank you very much for your presentation. We have sent the feedback form in the chat, so please also take a moment to fill in.
Right. 発表ありがとうございました。テーブル2のアンケートをチャットにてお送りいたしましたので、ぜひご協力いただきますようお願いいたします。
Furthermore, Table 2 has received the support of mentorship from Mr. Akira Kawasaki, Peace Vote Executive Committee member, and from Professor Holly Barker from the University of Washington. Table 2 also welcomed numerous guest speakers, including Ms. Sumiko Hatakeyama, Peace Vote International Coordinator, Ken Brownell, Atomic Cleanup Veteran Activist, and Ash Anthony Maria, intern for the Cleanup Veteran. Thank you very much for your tremendous support.
なお、テーブル2の活動では、ピースボート共同代表、川崎明様、また、米国ワシントン大学人類学部教授、ホリー・ベイカー先生よりメンターとしてのお力添えをいただきました。また、テーブル2では、ピースボート畠山澄子様、ケン・ブラウネル様、アッシュ・マリア様など、多数のゲストスピーカーをお招きし、お知恵を拝借させていただきました。この場を借りて御礼を申し上げます。
Next, we will move on to the presentation from Table 3, entitled Food Security, How the Global Government Should Sustainably Feed 8 Billion. Food security has always been a pressing problem, and it has posed even more challenges in the pandemic. A lack of food security occurs mainly due to a wide range of factors, such as poverty, climate change, and slow agricultural development. Table 3 strongly believes that we all need to reconsider the distribution of food resources and ensure that everyone can meet the minimum dietary standard. For the past few months, they have been discussing how companies in developed countries like Japan can provide other nations with a method to produce sustainable food products. And in the end, they have chosen India as the target country for their proposal due to its severity of food security problem. But beyond any physical boundaries, Table 3 aims at finding holistic solution to offer to the international community.
次にテーブル3、食の安全保障、世界が80億人全員の食べたいを叶えるためによる発表をお届けいたします。食の安全保障は差し迫った問題であり、パンデミックの影響でさらなる挑戦を投げかけられています。この食の安全保障の不足は、主に貧困、気候変動、農業開発の遅れといった広い要因によって引き起こっております。テーブル3では、食料資源の分配を再考する必要があると強く確信しており、それによって人々が最低限の食事基準を満たすことができると考えます。これまでの数ヶ月間、参加者らは日本のような先進国の企業が持続可能な食料を生産するための方法をどのように他国へ提供できるのかについて議論を進めてまいりました。 最終的な政策提言では、食料安全保障の問題の深刻さから、インドを対象国として選びました。彼らは物理的な境界を越えた解決策を見つけることを一つの目的と掲げています。それではテーブル3の皆さん、よろしくお願いいたします。Table 3, the floor is yours.
All right, so food security is a gigantic issue which requires a wide range of aspects considered. Therefore, it will demand not only the effort by the state, but international solidarity. Our policy proposal deals with 3 viewpoints of food security: production level, supply chain, and culture. We will discuss definition of the problem, target region and the population, actual proposal, and implementation. And it will seem that we have too many focuses and interventions, but it will show how complex the issue is. Furthermore, of course, more research will be needed, and we're going to continue to study more than that. Yes, so I will hand over the mic to Tao.
Okay, thank you, Minori. So I am from group 1 of table 3, and I'm going to talk about the effect of water shortage on food security in India and how we're going to approach it. First, I'm going to talk about the definitions of the problem. So as many of you may know, India is one of the world's most stressed countries according to the World Bank, and it affected by development factors such as population growth, industrial development, as well as climate change, and these have negative effect on the agriculture of India, especially its rain-fed agriculture. So next, I'm going to talk about our focus case study, Rajasthan. So it is the largest state of India Union and also the crucial food production area, and it faces growing imbalance between the demand and supply of water, uncertainty in availability of water, etc. And also the rain-fed agriculture in Rajasthan is dependent on the monsoon, which is not only unpredictable, but also lasts for a really short period. And it also faces difficulty in scarcity of surface water, as well as the annual groundwater due to low rainfall. So after this, I'm going to talk about the target populations. So according to many our research, we know that the farmers in Rajasthan have faced a lot of crops damage due to the monsoon or the drought. So, however, the government compensation was not enough for them. Therefore, they have to abandon their fields to migrate to cities in search of their works. Therefore, our policy proposal target is the farmers in Rajasthan who suffer from crop damage and financial burden due to water problems in their agriculture. So in the next part, we're going to talk about how we're going to approach this problem. And I gave this part to my teammates, Saki.
Thank you, Tao. In order to solve farmers' water shortage, we suggest 2 technologies. The one, a new irrigation system called Blue Diffuser, and the second one is a service called Aqua Agro. Blue Diffuser is a new sustainable irrigation system. Setting a small equipment, it can save rainfall water and send them directly into each plant root. Compared with drip irrigation, it can save water usage into quarter and boost the productivity into 5 times. Aqua Agro is a service that provides farmers a real-time data of full necessity information. It has already proved that farmer can save 50% water and costs and can grow up to 35 more crops.
And the point next is how we will make these ideas work. As for implementation, we suggest to install Berry Diffuser from bottom-up approach and Aqua Agro from top-down approach. Berry Diffuser are installed from venture capital getting invested. And after setting an appropriate return system, we start testing from small farmers. On the other hand, Aqua Agro needs lots of state's data, so we ask support to the largest agro company in India that government has 80% of its stock. Utilizing data with company's influence, we make an app and advertisements with the company's products. So this is how we implement our ideas. And this is the end of our water shortage group. And the next part is about gender equality and education. So I will pass mic to the members of group 2.
Okay, hi everyone, good evening. So for the culture part, let's have a quick glance on our definition of the problem, which we break down into 2 main points, which is gender inequality and negative circulation with education. According to the World Economic Forum's Global Gender Gap Report 2021, India is one of the worst gender inequality countries, as gender equality is rooted in Indian history and society. Its gender inequality has severely affected women's and children's food insecurity. In this situation, women and girls tend not to get enough food and nutrients, and it may lead to a vicious cycle which undernourished mother will inevitably give birth to undernourished babies. Secondly, is the negative circulation between food insecurity and education. According to the American Youth Policy Forum, food insecure children and teenagers have been shown to miss school more frequently. This may lead to the lack of knowledge about family planning, inability to work enough to earn money, and inability to eat and nourish themselves adequately. Next, our group members, Warren and Hikaru, will give us a further example and explanation on these problems. Let's have a better understanding and enjoy the presentation. Pass to Warren.
All right, since kind of Warren seems absent, so I'm gonna take over his part. All right, so today we have 2 policy proposals. In the first half, I will explain about education program. We chose Rajasthan as target region because gender inequality resulting in food insecurity is a key factor in Rajasthan. Rajasthan is a suitable location for this program. We set the most underprivileged girls socially and financially in the rural community as the main target groups. This will be implemented for 7 to 8 years under sponsorship by JICA, and thereafter can be sustained by the local governments. Through this series of efforts, we will obtain a number of benefits. For the girls, they will eventually acquire agricultural skills and gain financial capability. For JICA and Ministry of Education, consequently, they will reduce the Shiki, next slide.
Next, I will explain about home gardening. First, we focus on Delhi, the capital of India, and the targets are farmers and families. This proposed method uses a video recording of the procedure and cultivation kits. There are 3 main benefits of doing this proposal. First, acquiring and using their knowledge of how to grow vegetables. Next, saving costs and getting enough food. Finally, improving the economic power of women and girls in families and communities. And that's all for our team's presentation. Next, please.
Author, I think he's got the internet problem. Kazushi, can you take over his part maybe?
Okay. My internet, sorry, I had a problem. Okay, so I'm sorry, everybody. Now we're gonna talk about the supply chain and some problems that we found in India. Next, please. In India's supply chain, the source of the problem has been identified by foreign and local presence being food storage. Many foods are lost due to lack of food storage and management.
maybe also have some troubles, so I will do presentation, and in this section we explain what is the problem in supply chain, and the problem is in storage process. Next slide, please. And then and it is in response, the government is increasing storage capacity and charging distribution strategies and using technologies. However, there are problems with these approaches. So next slide, please. So then we took a cue from the effort of companies, organizations around the world to turn food that would otherwise go to waste into new products, and we propose two policies that overcome the issues the current initiative have. And the first one is food processing startups, and second one is food banks. Next slide, please. So even after you listen to this explanation, we may have questions like, are their policies really feasible? So our implementation plan will be answered to the question. I interviewed the entrepreneur who is a founder of companies listed on the mother section of Tokyo Stock Exchanges, and we came up with specific implementation plans. So next slide, please. So thank you for listening to us, despite we have some troubles.
And as table chief, I would like to show my best gratitude to all the people who cooperate with us, and also all the table 3 members who has been working really hard with me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, table 3, for your presentation. And we're very sorry for the problem with the internet connection. And once again, we'd like to ask all of you to fill in the feedback form that we have sent in chat. Thank you.
はい、テーブル3の皆さん、発表ありがとうございました。先ほどは接続に問題が発生してしまい、大変失礼いたしました。なお、テーブル3のアンケートをチャットにてお送りいたしましたので、ぜひご協力いただきますようお願いいたします。
Table 3 has received academic support from various people, starting with Ms. Kaori Furuyama and Mr. Anura Shinha of Japan International Cooperation Agency, India, Ms. Ichika Cho from Table 42 International, and Professor Suzanne Hoyland from Aarhus University. Table 3 also had a chance to learn from Ms. Yoshiko Harada, Mr. Yoshio Mita, Mr. Tsumamu Nabae, Mr. Nobuhiko Akimoto, and Mr. Shade Ibrahimli, among other people, throughout their project. Thank you very much for your tremendous support.
なお、テーブル3の活動では、国際協力機構インド事務所の古山香織様とアヌラグシンハ様、特定非営利活動法人テーブル42インターナショナルの張一華様、デンマークオーフス大学人類学部准教授スザンヌ・ホイルン先生、また原田よし子様、三田義夫様、鍋江勉様、秋元信彦様など多数の、方々より学術面でのお力添えをいただきました。この場を借りて御礼を申し上げます。
So before we move to our next presentation, we will have a short break and would like to share a video from our sponsor with you.
ただいまより15分程度の休憩の時間を設定させていただきます。障害担当よりお知らせがございます。
休憩の時間に失礼いたします。障害の田村と有賀です。
Hi, we are now in Yuka from External Affairs for ISC67.
ここで第67回国際学生会議にご協賛いただいた株式会社エックス都市研究所様によるご登壇発表のビデオを放映させていただきます。どうぞご覧ください。
During this time, we will show the video of the presentation by Ex Research Institute Ltd, one of the companies which sponsored this conference. Please have it again. Thank you.
はい、皆様こんにちは。株式会社 X 都市研究所経営企画部の尾崎と申します。本日は当社の会社概要と会社の行った具体的な業務紹介をさせていただきます。まずは会社概要から。内容については以下の5点で説明をさせていただきます。まず基本情報です。会社名は株式会社 X 都市研究所と言います。設立年は1971年3月。都市設立50周年を迎えます。主な活動としては、都市と環境に関するプランニング、コンサルティング、シンクタンク業を営んでおり、社員数は134名。本社は東京都豊島区にございます。また支店は大阪にございまして、事務所は北海道から九州まで、またタイのバンコクにも事務所がございます。主なクライアントとしては、環境省、経産省、地方自治体といった官公庁や民間の企業、また JICA や国立環境研究所といった国の特殊法人からも業務を受託しております。続いて、当社の業務領域の紹介です。主な業務領域は4つございます。気候変動対策エネルギー分野、都市計画まちづくり分野、廃棄物処理リサイクル分野、化学物質対策環境リスク管理分野です。さらに、これらの複合的な領域として、持続可能な地域都市づくりや途上国技術協力分野についても業務を行っております。ここからは会社の全般的な事業紹介をさせていただきます。こちらは気候変動エネルギー分野について、環境省から受託した調査で日本全国の再生可能エネルギーのポテンシャルを論文や統計データをもとにマッピングをしたという業務です。この成果物はさまざまな政策決定に活用いただいております。続きまして、都市計画まちづくり分野です。これは10年後、20年後のまちづくりを市民の方と協力して、計画した都市計画マスタープラン作成の事例です。続いてこちらは廃棄物処理・リサイクル分野で、大雨により発生した災害廃棄物の処理に関して、現地に入って処理計画を立てて、処理の進行管理を行ったという事例です。また昨今話題の海洋プラスチックや途上国における廃棄物処理方法の改善業務も行っております。以上の業務を通じ、当社は脱炭素社会の実現、持続可能な社会の構築を目指しております。最後に、業績については、2020年コロナ禍でも順調に売上利益を伸ばしております。以上で会社概要の説明を終わります。続きまして、研究員の山田から当社の具体的な業務紹介をさせていただきます。
こんにちは。サステイナビリティデザイン事業本部地域エネルギー戦略チームの山田と申します。SDGs の観点から見たまちづくりとして、当社が政策をご支援させていただいている富山市さんの事例をご紹介させていただきたいと思います。このような内容でお話をさせていただきます。まずは地域の概況についてお話をさせていただきます。富山市は富山県の中央部に位置する人口約41万人の県庁所在都市であり、医薬品や機械、電子部品等を使用を中心としたものづくり産業が盛んな日本海側有数の中核都市として発展してきました。日本では珍しい LRT が走っている都市でもあり、医薬品産業に特徴を持っています。人口減少、少子高齢社会が進行する中、富山市は日本全国、世界の都市が抱える地域課題をトータルで内包し、その先進的な取り組みは多くの都市の課題の解決、普及につながる地方都市モデルとなっています。富山市の抱える問題の一つは人口減少、少子高齢社会の到来です。富山市の人口は増加傾向でありましたが、近年減少に転じています。また、少子化の影響により年少人口と生産年齢人口が減少する一方、高齢人口は増加し、今後高齢化の一層の進展が予想されます。また、市街地の低密度化の問題もあります。人口集中地区の面積は拡大している一方で、同地区の人口密度は減少の傾向を示しています。また、自動車への過度な依存による公共交通の衰退にも直面しています。こうした課題を抱える富山市では、 公共交通を軸とした拠点集中型のコンパクトな街づくりを進めており、LRT ネットワークの形成等により、徒歩圏の街の魅力を高め、市内各地に拠点を形成し、公共交通でそれをつなぐ構造である横断歩と串の都市構造を目指して、緩やかに居住者を誘導する取り組みを進めています。また、歩くライフスタイル戦略を策定し、歩いて暮らせる街づくりも進めています。富山市は国際連合サステナブルエナジー・フォー・オール、エネルギー効率改善都市、米国ロックフェラー財団100のレジリエントシティへの選定、さらには G7 富山環境大臣会合の開催地として選定されるなど、海外からも高い評価を受けています。国内においても環境モデル都市、環境未来都市等に選定され、都市が抱える地方都市として果たすべき役割、一層大きくなっています。富山市は2018年9月に経済、社会、環境の分野をめぐる広範な課題に統合的に取り組む地方自治体として、国の SDGs 未来都市に選定されました。富山市では SDGs 未来都市計画において、経済価値、社会価値、環境価値の3つの価値を設定し、環境モデル都市、環境未来都市の取り組みを3つの価値の統合による都市創造のスパイラルアップの視点から発展させ、SDGs 未来都市コンパクトシティ戦略による持続可能な付加価値創造都市の実現を目指しています。富山市の SDGs 推進に関する取り組みは、都市の形、市民生活、エネルギー、産業、都市地域の5つの分野で実施されています。ここからは具体的な取り組み事例についてご紹介をさせていただきます。富山市は製薬産業が盛んであると申し上げましたが、薬用健康作物の栽培も行っています。生産管理地域における農業の振興等を目指し、富山市ではエゴマ6次産業化を推進しています。エゴマ生産の過程で耕作放棄地や温泉熱を活用することで、地球環境への負荷を減らし、製造面でもエゴマの葉、茎、種、すべての無駄をなくして活用して商品開発を行っています。またこうしたエゴマなど健康薬用作物を含め農業の活性化を進めるためにはその他の推進が必要です。富山市では従事者の高齢化等による担い手不足の問題を抱える農林水産業全般の成長産業化に向けてエゴマの6次産業化の推進にとどまらず AI、ICT、ロボット技術等の先端技術の活用による省力化、高品質生産を実現するためスマート機器の導入を推進しています。エネルギー分野については、富山市では2017年に政府&環境モデル外交を官民連携で整備しています。富山市ではここで得たノウハウ、知見等を活用して地域に展開することとしています。現在、レジリエンス強化に向けた取り組みを推進する府中体育館周辺の公共施設を対象として、LNG 等の有効活用に配慮しつつ、太陽光発電パネルをはじめとする再生可能エネルギーの発電設備、蓄電池等の導入、増設によって、再生可能エネルギー由来の電力利用率の向上や、災害時の BCP 対策を強化したサステナブルゾーンの形成を図っています。さらに、官民連携の一層の推進に向けて、ローカル SDGs の実現を目指す富山地域循環共生圏モデル形成プラットフォーム等の地域連携プラットフォームを運営しています。また、新たなビジネスの創出や暮らしの課題解決を目指す交流競争スペーススケッチラボを運営しています。コンパクトシティのネクストステージということで、令和2年10月に菅首相によるグリーン社会の実現に向けた2050年の温室効果ガス排出実質ゼロの表明がありました。脱炭素の実現に向けた機運が高まる中、令和3年3月、富山市はゼロカーボンシティを表明しました。富山市はゼロカーボン宣言により環境施策のさらなる強化を図り、SDGs 未来都市の取り組みのさらなる進化を目指し、コンパクトシティのネクストステージに取り組んでいきます。当社は富山市において古くからコンパクトシティ、エコタウンなど都市づくりと環境づくりの両面の業務での支援を行ってきており、都市づくりでは社会資本、都市の指標や評価、歩くライフスタイル戦略の検討支援をしてきており、横断歩と串の都市構造を富山市と一緒に考え、都市計画マスタープランに落とし込み、コンパクトシティ政策推進を支援してきました。LRT 整備が一段落した最近では、ソフト面を重視し、歩くライフスタイル推進等も支援しています。環境づくりでは環境先進モデル外区形成や エゴマの6次産業化を打ち出した環境モデル都市及び環境未来都市、地域のエネルギー効率改善の推進を支援してきており、SDGs やゼロカーボンについても富山市ともにその推進に取り組んでいます。このように都市及び環境の両面での取り組みは SDGs を契機にハードとソフトがさらに一体化し、歩くライフスタイル、SDGs まちづくり、ゼロカーボンなど分野横断的な政策、事業推進支援が求められるようになってきています。そして政策、事業推進は官のみならず、官民連携が重要であり、温暖化対策をテーマとしたチーム富山市やエネルギープロジェクトの推進、展開のため、地域循環共生圏モデル形成プラットフォームなど、官民連携の参加型のプラットフォーム形成や運営を手掛けることも多くなってきています。以上、SDGs の観点から見たまちづくりとして、富山市の事例を紹介させていただきましたが、当社は未来をデザインし、持続可能な地域社会形成をプロデュースする専門家集団として、今後のまちづくり政策の推進発展と、住民の幸福を両立する地域づくり、地域活性化に貢献していきたいと考えています。当社からの紹介は以上になります。ご清聴ありがとうございました。
We would now like to move on to the presentation from Table 4. Table 4's topic is entitled Migrant Laborers Rethinking Migrant Labor Rights in the Pandemic. Due to the devastating impact of the COVID-19, we're all forced to have a challenging time. Against this backdrop, Table 4 has decided to aim at protecting migrant laborer human rights, who play an essential role in the Japanese economy. Among all residency status, Table 4 has focused on technical intern trainees, who are currently representing the highest number of migrant workers in Japan. Through research and discussions in the past few months, they have come up with ways to help technical intern trainees before and during their stay in Japan by making suggestions for improving a mobile app that connects technical intern trainees with Japan companies.
はい、次にテーブル4、外国人労働者、コロナ禍の外国人労働者の権利を考え直すによる発表をお届けいたします。今なお続く新型コロナウイルス感染症の影響により、私たちは生活の在り方を一から再考せざるを得なくなりました。そんな中で日本において今となっては、欠かせない存在になっている外国人労働者の権利を考え直したいという思いから、テーブル4の全員はこの問題に注目することにしました。また、外国人労働者の中でも日本における労働資格の中で一番大きな数を占める技能実習生に着目してまいりました。本会議での研究と議論を通じて、彼らは技能実習生が日本でより快適な生活を送られるように、技能実習生と日本企業をつなぐモバイルアプリの改善に焦点を当て、技能実習生の生活に役立つ方法を考え出し、最終成果物の作成に努めてまいりました。それではテーブル4の皆さん、よろしくお願いいたします。Table 4, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Elang and Min. Then I would like to share the screen. Okay, I hope you can see the screen. So, hello everyone, I am Momoka Takagi and I am the table chief of Table 4. Let me begin with our final presentation. Our topic is migrant labor, rethinking migrant labor rights in the pandemic. As Lang and Min said, we decided to focus on the technical intern trainee program in Japan. And we aim to promote the platform where technical intern trainees can let out their voices. As a platform, we have focused on the app named Hello Ninja, which aims to help foreign workers to live in Japan and submit our proposal paper to the organization. Next, I will explain the contents of the paper. Here is the contents of the proposal paper. Today, we will go into the detail of the main proposal, additional proposal, and how to realize our proposal parts, and explain each section's contents briefly. In the introduction part, there are three contents: what is ISC, background and purpose, and the contents of the paper.
So to find out what problems that the technical intern trainees are actually facing, we conducted an interview survey as primary data and literature survey from past research. In particular, we conduct an in-person interview with 4 technical intern trainees from Thailand, currently in their second year in Japan. The interview was conducted in Thai based on questions about their workplace and the system of the PIT program. Please go next slide. So specifically, this interview found that there were very few conversations with Japanese co-workers in the workplace. Under the circumstance, they couldn't expect their language skills to improve or have opportunities to solve daily questions instantly in their workplace. In addition, COVID-19 accelerated their anxiety about achieving their goals within the period of the program. From this interview, it became clear that this communication in the workplace makes them feel more anxious and insecure about their future. Please next slide.
In the research of the literature, we found a lot of issues surrounding TRTs, such as low wages, overtime work, debt issue, human rights abuses, and so on. Among these issues, we focused on the language problem and deceptive recruitment problem. First, even though the TRT program requires to Japanese language lectures, it's not enough for TRTs to acquire the Japanese communication skills. Also, the lack of language ability makes it difficult for them to ask help from others, even when they experience abuses at workplaces. Another problem is the deceptive recruitment problem. According to the lead, most of the trainees answered they were not provided accurate information regarding their jobs, working hours, wage levels before came to Japan. One of the examples of this deceptive recruitment problem is a 24-year-old Vietnamese testifies that even though he was to learn the skills in engineering and construction, he ended up doing the contamination job in the area near the nuclear plant at Fukushima Prefecture, where was the site of 2011 earthquake and nuclear meltdown. From these 2 findings, we found that the lack of language skills and the system in which TIT cannot get accurate information are problematic. Next, please.
Regarding our main proposal, we decided to focus on improving Hello Ninja app by adding to the app the network system of the other interns. The system includes the chatting system and the Japanese language assistance system. This system is a platform to connect past, current, as well as future TITs. The aim is to provide the interns with a network to help each other, especially new interns who have just come to Japan. Moreover, as we mentioned in our literature findings, one of the biggest problems for TITs is language barrier. So we will help them to improve their language proficiency by conducting meetings for TIT to exchange languages through the network system. We can also conduct online lessons through the system as well. And the interns will be divided to their levels and their native language. And we can select volunteers or hire teachers who can speak the interns' mother tongues and proficient in Japanese to lead the language exchange meeting.
The good thing that will happen by including network system are to improve languages, create opportunities to talk with people more easily, and get up-to-date information. One of the limitations for TITs is that they don't have free time so much and they have financial problems such as debts and sending money to their families. Because of COVID-19, it's much harder to remove their concerns due to lack of communication. Also, it will prevent the problem of disappearance of TITs, which is one of the big issues. We hope these functions help TITs.
So our additional proposal is to change the name from Hello Ninja to Kizuna. So first I will explain about the meaning of the name Hello Ninja. In the past, Ninja is the protector of a community who we work in secret to collect information and see if there's any trouble and report it to the authority. While this is a very meaningful and good name, we find that it might not be friendly enough to foreigners who might misunderstand, what the application is about. So we want to change it to Kizuna, which is a Japanese name, which means emotional tie or bond or connection. And it is in line with what we are changing the application into, a platform to connect TITs with other people. Next slide, please.
We have one concern that TITs don't have the friends to confess their worries. Also, we took the questionnaire to migrants in Japan. We asked that, what is the problem of that? One of the respondents of questionnaire we mentioned before said that they wanted to communicate online. By changing the name, I think we can improve the visibility of this application and increase the number of users of application, thereby removing the concern of technical intern trainees. Next, please.
Okay, next, I will explain how to realize our proposal from two perspectives. The first is about money making. It takes a high cost to bring new functions that we proposed into the app. Therefore, we plan to cover this additional cost by in-app advertisement. By posting advertisement of companies or organizations that support TITs, not only will the app be monetized, but it will also be a comprehensive site where TITs can obtain various support information. In addition, we also plan to get financial support from the government or local government. Since the government is providing financial support to private organizations that support TITs, if we add new functions to the app and it becomes more practical, we will be able to apply for the subsidy system. The second is about promotion of the app. In order to get more users and support more TITs, we need to promote this app widely. Therefore, we plan to collaborate with other organizations which aim to protect and help TITs and ask the organization to advertise the app on their official homepage. In addition, we also plan to promote the app at the Japanese language schools which TITs are attending and on the social media pages which provide information to TITs and has a large number of followers. Next, please.
Okay, thank you all. And as a conclusion, we reviewed the contents of this paper briefly. Through this paper, we highlighted the importance of the platform and human relationships. Our next action is to translate our paper into Japanese and submit and ask the organization to carry out our proposals to change society and give impact to it. Lastly, we believe that we could not realize the importance of human relationships without having this entirely online program. So we really appreciate all of those who worked and are working very hard to have this conference. However, as I said, we still need to keep working, so we will continue to work to solve this social issue. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Table 4, for your presentation. We have sent the feedback form in the chat, so please take a moment to fill in.
はい、テーブル4の皆さん、発表ありがとうございました。テーブル4のアンケートをチャットにてお送りいたしましたので、ぜひご協力いただきますようお願いいたします。
Furthermore, Table 4 has received the support of mentorship from Ms. Miho Okada from Coal Roundtable Japan, Mr. Takaaki Takahashi from JCI Union, Professor Nobuko Okuda from the Graduate School of Humanity and Social Science, Nagoya City University, and Professor Kyoto Tano from the Faculty of Humanities and Social Science, Tokyo Metropolitan University. Furthermore, Table 4 has also had an opportunity to interview 4 technical trainees from Thailand. Thank you very much for your tremendous support.
なお、テーブル4の活動では、経済人高円卓会議日本委員会事務局の岡田美穂様、JCI 産業文化協同組合の高橋孝明様、名古屋市立大学大学院人間文化研究科教授の奥田信子先生、また東京都立大学、人文科学研究科教授の丹野清人先生より、メンターとしてのお力添えをいただきました。また、先ほどの発表にもありましたように、テーブル4は、高橋孝明様のご支援により、4名のタイ国籍の、技能実習生とインタビュー調査を行うことができました。この場を借りて御礼を申し上げます。
Lastly, we would like to move on to the presentation from Table 5, entitled Participatory Urban Planning, Developing Inclusivity in the Globalized Cities. For this topic, Table 5 aims at democratizing public space use by incorporating civilian participation in the urban development process. It is estimated by the WHO that about 7 billion people are going to live in cities by 2050. A high concentration of humans per given amount of space can pose an array of problems, from hard issues such as increased demand for housing, water, sanitation, healthcare, and educational needs that a city could not sustainably meet long-term. They aim to analyze the most important resource a city has to offer, the human experience itself. This final product is their 4-month-long journey, which hopes that people's participation will refocus a city to be truly for people and by people.
最後にテーブル5、参加型都市計画、グローバル都市における全主体者参加可能な開発による発表をお届けいたします。テーブル5は都市開発のプロセスに市民の参加をより柔軟に取り入れることで、それに暮らす人々にとって有意義な公共空間の利用を目的としています。世界保健機関は2050年に約70億人が都市に住むようになると推定しております。一定の面積に人間が集中することで、住宅、水、衛生、医療、教育などの需要が増大し、都市が長期的に持続できないという問題が発生します。人口が集中することで、さまざまな問題が発生する都市に関する問題を解決するために、最も重要な資源である私たち人間のアクティビティそのものというのに着目し、分析を行ってまいりました。このプレゼンテーションは真の意味で人々のために人々によって都市が再構築されることを期待した彼らの4ヶ月に及ぶ長い旅の成果でございます。ぜひお楽しみくださいませ。それではテーブル5の皆さんよろしくお願いいたします。Table 5 members, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Lan and Ming. Hi everybody, my name is Lan and I will be opening our table presentation with the agenda with the following scope. Introduction, aim, 3 case studies, thematic analysis, recommendation, and conclusion. Next, I will introduce the topic of urban migration and its issues. Most people want to live in the cities. In fact, half the global populations currently reside in urban areas. Better access to healthcare, education, economic opportunities, and such are reasons to justify urban migrations as citizens amass in ever-growing cities. However, bigger cities do not equate better living conditions. Environmental degradations, derelict spaces, social challenges such as inequalities and social exclusion, and lack of green infrastructures are forcing people to seriously consider urban planning as a tool to rearrange available space and organize future constructions, to make cities and human, inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable as a part of UN's 11 Sustainable Development Goals. In the context of contemporary urban planning, 2 questions are usually asked: how to connect people and public space, and how much should people be involved in the planning process of placemaking? These 2 questions sum up 2 main topics of our table paper, which are placemaking, defined as intention of creating public spaces that promote people's health, happiness, and well-being, and participatory urban planning that emphasizes on civilian participation. Next, Diana will talk about our table's aim.
Hello everyone, my name is Diana and I'm happy to present the aims of the paper, which are: first, to shed light on the situation of public involvement regarding placemaking in Japan, Indonesia, and UK, providing analytical data about the pros and cons of the status quo in these countries. Second, to identify the patterns provided by these 3 case studies to seek elements that foster desirable results in public engagement, as well as those results that pose challenges. And third, to develop a vision of desirable action in participatory urban planning, relying on the experiences reflected in the 3 cases provided. And now I would like to hand over to Amy and May, presenting the first case study in Japan.
Thank you, Laura and Diana. Parks are used for a variety of purposes, such as event planning and places for rest. In this section, I will talk about placemaking in parks, using Yokohama Dobutsu-no-Mori Parks as an example. The first adventure in the park is the first park in Yokohama City to adopt Park PFI. This is a new system established to increase the convenience of park users and is attracting attention as a new method for a development and operation of urban parks, utilizing the vitality of the private sector.
One of the citizen-led activities is an organization called the Creation and the Voice of the Woods. This citizens groups conducts park path maintenance and nature classes with the aim of increasing communication among citizens through their activities. Here, the nature characteristic of the park and the communication of the citizens are combined to help form a new community. To sum up, this park functions as a platform for citizens, governments, and businesses to create an accessible place as a park. Next case study is Jakarta, presented by Amira.
Thank you, Amy and May, for presenting the case study of Japan. I'm going to present the case study of Jakarta. But the urban villages routes are often used as a shortcut by the motorcyclists. ITDP Indonesia, seeing this as the urban mobility system potentials, then started a community-driven initiative called Kampung Kota Bersama. The outcome of this initiative is to transform urban villages in Jakarta to be more cyclist and pedestrian-friendly to enhance the linkage, comfort, and social abilities. This initiative created new facilities and installations to improve urban mobilization systems while enhancing the residents' environment. Since this initiative involves various bodies and organizations, the solutions and the inputs that are proposed are rightly targeted to the issues and actually solve the occurring problems. Seeing the success of this initiative, the goal of the Kampung Kota Bersama is to be replicated by the other urban villages throughout Jakarta. Now, Soa will present a case study on Newcastle, England.
Thank you, Aliyah. My name is Soma Nishimura, and I'm going to explain about case study 3. Case study 3 is about placemaking around the city centre of Newcastle, UK. The background about this case study was that the elderly within Newcastle were feeling uncomfortable due to the city's environment not being elderly friendly enough. Though the council's request of adapting stores with larger signs and implementing sleeping proof mats through actual insights from the residents, Newcastle was able to reimagine a city that is friendly across all ages through reevaluation based on local requests. Based on the request and subsequent transparent partnership with the Newcastle City Council, Newcastle Elderly Forum, or the Newcastle Elderly Council, was able to become the main voice of implementing ideas with the purpose of creating an all-age friendly city. This is called creative participation of placemaking, and it is a process of understanding the local distinctive nature of a city in terms of population demographic, culture, and history. Similar types of placemaking policies have been adapted in cities such as in Bristol and Cumbria. Through this method of state or city council connecting with local groups to implementing better placemaking policies can create a transparent and co-creative foundation to connect with the city council. But however, there were some issues within this case study as well. Because the connection between the elderly forum and the city council has become too connected, certain demographics have become too prioritized, which has limited the amount of stakes that other people or other demographics can be involved in terms of placemaking. Based on this case, it can be analyzed that participatory placemaking can have its limits, and including every demographics perspective, and it is difficult to truly create a city for everyone. So next, Midori-san will be talking about the thematic analysis.
Thank you so much. I'm Midori Dobashi. In this section, based on these 3 case studies, we explore the positive and negative paradigm through a process of data familiarization and theme development and revision. Regarding the positive theme, they all explore how different groups participate in the process of placemaking and improve the neighborhood areas to make their public space the heart of community by inventing different activities. Thanks to the use of placemaking method and revitalizing the community as a result, different people, including workers, visitors, as well as the residents, of course, could have been enjoying the place as their third place. Having said that, what we found out is that there are still necessity for improvement on this process and management, which will be introduced as their negative features. The thing is, public involvement has limitation in certain steps. It means that public participation only has involved over the specific phase of the planning process. In particular, in most cases, the government or local authorities still have the major power in the last step of re-evaluation and long-term improvement. The reason why this is so problematic is that policy making and budget adjustment highly depends on this phase. And unfortunately, from analyzing these cases, we can't say there have been enough opportunities and resources for the public to grow their stewardship. Stewardship is the passion of caring for or safeguarding others and their resources, as well as the planning and management of resources. Hence, the planning process is still under the top-down approach, even though the surrounding situation has definitely changed compared to the previous one.
Thank you, Midori. And now, based on the careful investigation of the case studies and thematic analysis, our table developed 5 recommendations to increase civilian participation in urban planning and placemaking strategies. First is the early public introduction on the importance of the built environment. Reaching out to residents from an early age in schools and having subjects on the importance of civil participation is a way to instruct a population about its rights as a public space stakeholder from a young age. Second is the integration of technology. The use of smartphones, big data, and crowdsourcing through online platforms could be tapped as an opportunity to organize data-based solutions for ease of use. Third is the effective use of mixed-purpose land. Ideally, space use should be multifunctional and ready to adapt to public needs. A place's design, materials, and equipment should be flexible so that when the initial goal of the place is not working, it is still available for further renovations and additions. Fourth is the stimulation of cultural events. The presence of cultural events is one of the most focused pillars of placemaking. These cultural events adds to a place's so-called character because it enables inhabitants of a place to express their identities in a public setting that encourages interaction between demographics. And lastly is the equality of human resources. Professionals both in academia and governments should be equally spread out in projects to avoid favoring one area of urban planning over the other. Having a healthily distributed body of experts across different policy implementations can help in reducing inequality of resources such as funding, talent, and opportunity. These are our recommendations, and Sola will now be concluding our presentation.
Thank you, Patricia. And I will be now concluding this presentation. So return to the purpose why we did this research. We analyzed this because we did this research because we want to analyze the potentials of participatory placemaking. Through analysis of 3 case studies from various cities from around the world, we concluded that yes, participatory placemaking could connect residents' needs to make a resident central urban structure. However, as Midori-san has mentioned, the fixed steps in placemaking have limitations on how much the residents have a say in placemaking overall, wherein our recommendation sections aims to limit these negative themes. With the COVID pandemic affecting our society today, participatory placemaking can be even more limited considering the unpredictable changes in urban needs and societal issues that urban residents face today. It is important to acknowledge the change in urban needs due to the pandemic and analyze both the changes in residents' needs and the local authorities or government's needs within the pandemic. As participatory urban planning's popularity in practice increases, trends remain hopeful. There more and more cities globally are starting to implement placemaking strategies in their development to improve an overall welfare of its citizens, both in theory and practice. To end our presentation, a quote by one of the most influential urban planners in the modern world, Tai Kei-lo, muses that put a city together, you must know what are its spare parts and how to assemble it. It must be user-friendly, must work beautifully, and it must be attractive. We hope that the next generation will experience more human-centric cities as they grow up. Thank you very much for listening today. And if any inquiries, please enter them in the Google form, and we will be happy to address them later on the Q&A. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you for your presentation. We have sent the feedback form in the chat, so please take a moment to fill in.
はい、テーブル5の皆さん、発表ありがとうございました。テーブル5のアンケートをチャットにてお送りいたしましたので、ぜひご協力いただきますようお願いいたします。
Furthermore, Table 5 has received the supportive mentorship from Dr. Heide Imai from Faculty of Intercultural Communication, Central University. Table 5 also welcomed Ms. Joeline Marty, a PhD candidate from the Faculty of Urban Engineering, the University of Tokyo, as a guest speaker. Moreover, Table 5 also received cooperation from Participatory.org and Placemaking X. Thank you very much for your tremendous support.
なお、テーブル5の活動では、専修大学国際コミュニケーション学部准教授の今井楓先生よりメンターとしてのお力添えをいただきました。また、テーブル5では、ジョエリン・マーティ様をゲストスピーカーとしてお招きし、お知恵を拝借させていただきました。さらに、Participatory.organization 様と、プレイスメイキング X 様からも多大なるお力添えをいただきました。この場を借りて御礼を申し上げます。
This is the end of the presentation from all the table. Thank you very much once again for all the hard work and congratulations on your excellent performance.
以上をもちまして、各分科会による成果発表会は終了となります。発表者の皆さん、発表お疲れ様でした。
After today's final forum, the final product of each table will be reviewed and submitted to the relevant organization.
本日の成果発表会の後、各分科会の提言や最終成果物は校閲を行った上で各関係機関に提出させていただく予定でございます。
Furthermore, at the end of today's event, we will have a free interaction session. If you have any question or comment or to any of the table, they will be waiting for you at their own breakout room. We welcome your comment in both Japanese and English.
なお、本日のプログラムの最後に各分科会の学生と自由にご交流いただける時間を設定しております。ご意見やご質問などございましたら、お気軽にご参加ください。日本語でも英語でもご質問いただけます。
はい、分科会の皆さん発表ありがとうございました。続いてゲストスピーカーセッションに移ります。
Thank you very much for the presentation from all the table. Next, we would like to move on to the guest speaker session. The pandemic has increased uncertainty in the society, and we are urged to rethink the way we live and interact in the new normal era. How should we live in such a time? How do our guest speakers with different specialties see the current era? You'll find out about the answer to these questions very soon. We really hope you enjoy the session to the end.
コロナ禍によって社会の不確実性が高まり、社会の在り方は見直しを迫られています。そのような時代を私たちはどのように生きていけばいいのでしょうか。また、異なる専門分野をお持ちのお二方の目には、今の時代がどのように映っているのでしょうか。ぜひこのゲストスピーカーセッションを最後までお楽しみください。本日お一人目のご講演者様は高須幸雄様です。 まず、高須幸雄様のご略歴を簡単に紹介させていただきます。
Today, we would like to introduce the first guest speaker, Mr. Yukio Takasu. Mr. Takasu is the chairman of the NPO Forum on Human Security, the current special advisor to the Secretary General of the United Nations, in charge of human security, the vice president of the Japan Committee for UNICEF, and a visiting professor at Ritsumeikan University and Chubu University. He has international experience as Under Secretary General of the United Nations Permanent Representative of Japan to the United Nations. And he is the author of National Data SDGs and Japan, Human Security Indicator for No One Left Behind.
高須様 NPO 法人人間の安全保障フォーラム理事長、現国際連合事務総長特別顧問人間の安全保障担当であり、日本ユニセフ協会副会長、立命館大学、中部大学客員教授として活動されております。また、国連事務次長、国際連合日本政府常駐代表などを歴任され、豊富な国際経験をお持ちです。著書に全国データ、SDGs と日本、誰も取り残されないための人間の安全保障指標があります。それでは高須様よりご講演を承りたいと思います。高須様、マイクをオンにしていただき、ご講演のほどよろしくお願いいたします。マイクの方が、そうですね。一度、マイクを外してお話しいただいてもよろしいでしょうか。そうですね、今ちょっと聞こえない形になってますね。そうですね。
としてるんですけれども。
はい、今、聞こえました。はい。聞
こえました？
はい、聞こえます。ありがとうございます。
わかりました。マイクがちょっと両ました。Well, very much for your kind introduction. As you have been introducing me, I have been promoting concept of human security for many years, within Japan, but also globally, in my capacity as Secretary General's Special Advisor on Human Security. So I'm very pleased to make a few comments at this 67th International Student Conference. And I listened with great interest to all of the presentation. And I'm really impressed by enthusiasm and a high quality presentation. So for that, I like to commend the members of organizing committee, but also presenters for the excellent works. I'd like to make the three general comments before going through specific comment on your presentations by one by one. First of all, first point I really wanted to make stress is interdependence of peace, development, and human rights. Your panel covered the three elements, but sustaining peace and also sustainable development, human rights are interconnected, interdependent. I'm afraid this aspect was not very clear today. So I really want to stress this, because sustaining peace, mean durable peace, cannot be realized unless development progress and human rights of minorities are respected, including foreigners and foreign workers. Economic and social development cannot be sustainable unless peace and stable political order and human rights are assured. Equally, human rights inequality are promoted when sustaining peace and the sustainable development making progress. For instance, the more freedom of expression is respected in one country, the country is less likely to wage war. So to achieve a peaceful and prosperous society, we have to pursue peace, development, human rights simultaneously. Second point is that you talked about SDGs very much, but still, I'm afraid that I really want to stress the one aspect of Sustainable Development Goals, which has been adopted by UN General Assembly when I was in UN Secretariat. You know that it is based on the recognition of such interdependence, peace, development, and human rights. SDG aims at realizing peaceful, prosperous, and fair society through not only eradication of poverty, and food security, of course, improvement of living conditions, urbanization, and preservation of global environment. These are very important for sustainability. However, also peace and stability and correcting discrimination and inequality is a very important point. You know, the two documents are separate. One is SDG, UN Resolution of General Assembly, and Agenda 2030 is another document. And Agenda 2030 provide vision of SDG. It's not just simply 17 goals under 69 goals. Effective implementation of SDGs, therefore, requires pursuit of peace, development, and human rights on equal basis. Today's theme covered important objectives, of course, target of SDGs. Food and goal 2, and foreign workers, goal 8.8 and 10.7, and political participation, goal 16.7, and urban planning, goal 11, like it pointed out. Second point I'd like to stress is usefulness of human security approach. I listened to presentation very carefully, but I wish a little bit more application of human security approach could have been discussed in each of the subjects. Because concept of human security helps linking peace, development, human rights, as I said. So human security recognizes inherent value of human being just because one is born as a human being. So human security aims, as you know, ensuring life means survival. Nuclear disarmament, elimination of nuclear weapons is one of those. Livelihood, town planning and urban planning and other things, and food security is livelihood. But also about dignity to every individual. This human dignity is extremely important, the word I didn't hear tonight, because it's an inalienable right that is enshrined in 1948 Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Such understanding of human security was agreed internationally by UN General Assembly Resolution 2012. So elimination of nuclear weapon falls under category life and survival. Food and urban planning, livelihood, living condition, but political participation and treatment of foreign workers, foreign residents, that I talk later on separately. These are dignity, extremely important subject. So strengths of human security approach, I do want to see more clearly, because always human security addresses issues from any issue you talk about, food, town planning, everything. Human-centered view. Always pay attention to indignity, anxiety of a person to possess individual will and view, not treat people as a group of people. Second point is that we focus on most vulnerable people who are likely to be left over and try to address the need. So I wanted to see this aspect more clearly in your presentations. Third point is promote integrated approach. It's not only public sector at national and subnational level, but also private sector and civil society level. So encompassing peace and development, human rights, integrated through partnership with various stakeholders. This is great potential to explore. And some of the hint I can hear, but not much to tap. So third point, general point I'd like to make is what is the new normal we're talking about? What has become actualized in the new normal after COVID-19 pandemic? First of all, it caused serious impact disproportionately on vulnerable people. This is the most important, I think, new normal, including children, women, particularly single mother, regular workers, elderly people. Globally speaking, low-income countries, high-indebted countries, countries in conflict, and people laborers and migrant workers, foreign workers, and refugees. And human rights of those vulnerable groups are violated, particularly children. This is child right crisis. Also, Mr. Fujisaki talked about democracy deficit in the beginning recently. By the way, we entered the Foreign Ministry at the same time. So, due to emergency measures taken during COVID-19, the democracy have been backsliding already last 15, 20 years. But that accelerated because of the restriction of freedom of people and also freedom of press are severely curtailed, narrowing space of civil society and opposition. This is very serious. There are several, I think, internationally known index of democracy. And one of them is Variety of Democracy Project, which is created by the University of Sweden. That's reported that majority of world population now live under authoritarian states for the first time since 2001. Except for another aspect is positive aspect, always is positive development is sense of global solidarity is heightened. This pandemic spread so widely in the world, such a short time causes enormous damages. It's so obvious that even superpower cannot address alone effectively without international cooperation. It's now widely shared. Until every person in the world becomes safe, nobody is safe. I think this is a very important development. However, challenge is how this sense of solidarity, higher sense of solidarity, should be translated to reality. That is a challenge. Because despite the serious impact, everybody knows that these corresponding international actions are falling short, not effective. Because priorities of donor countries are focused on domestic actions. So global frameworks such as COVAX facility, as you know, vaccine, are far from meeting the required target. So in this world of so-called new normal, there are all calls for build back better. What we should do? First of all, higher. Is okay? We can continue?
Yeah, sorry for that. Thank you so much.
Okay. Addressing global challenges. Pandemic is one of them. Of course, climate emergency comes later this year, and elimination of nuclear weapons. But also, I like to stress, this is high time to commit ourselves to realization of SDG. But equally, not just repeating SDG, and put badge of SDG on the lapel over the suit nowadays. It's not enough. You really have to appreciate fully shared vision of SDG. What is it? Which is not SDG document, but Agenda 2030. The significance of SDGs is not simply sustainability of economy and environment. That is concept of leaving no one left behind contained in Agenda 2030. Meaning, vision is to realize fair society, more equitable society through defending dignity of every person. So therefore, it is the developed countries' responsibility to cannot achieve SDG by simply following conventional approach. That is what say, to monitor the progress in meeting SDG target indicators. This is conventional approach. Because many of SDG indicators already achieved without any effort in a developed country. Doesn't mean that you are coming closer to the vision, no one left behind. So as you know, that I have developed so-called human security indicator of Japan, taking so-called backcasting approach. First, you have vision, and how to compare the vision and what we have now, and how come closer to that vision. And then the human security indicator of Japan, by visualizing, focusing support on people who are likely to be left over. And English translation is of the book is available through this JICA website, free of charge. So if you have time, please look at it. So I'm now go to this presentation comment. To comment, overall comment, and then specific comment afterward. First point, as I mentioned earlier, I wished you could have gone deeper on the value and application of human-centered, human security approach in taking up each case study. I did not see much elaboration in this aspect. The second point is that also, I wish you could have tackled each subject, not only with individual theme, but also context of broader implication, as I mentioned, interconnectedness with peace, development, human rights. I'm going to comment specifically in connection with food security. Food security is very closely related peace and human rights. That aspect was not very clear. So now I move on to specific comment on each presentation, which I really enjoyed listening. I arrange according to theme. So I take up the nuclear weapon first. This is a very interesting presentation, but I would say I was a little disappointed. Is not what was stated, what was presented, but what was not presented. For instance, I wished a stronger, persuasive argument why we must work to eliminate the nuclear weapons. Discussion tend to focus on process or mechanism for creating confidence building or conflict resolution forum and a eventually nuclear weapon-free zone in Northeast Asia. So rather than analyzing why Northeast Asia remains only region in the world that not only no nuclear weapon zone, free zone, but also regional political organization. Neither of them. See, this is the only area. And why it is. So before going to this procedure issue, process issue, I think we should focus on that, analyze this. Given the rising tension, particularly between US and China, can a country like Japan, for instance, you mentioned, take initiative, which has been, as you may know, cautious to regional political framework. By good reason, I can tell you. Take realistically a lead, as you say, to form such a mechanism in the region. You know, Korea is very eager for this. Japan has been reluctant. Perhaps you can guess why. Also, the nuclear disarmament, differences of nuclear disarmament and non-proliferation, and then elimination of nuclear weapon. These are, I think, very closely related, but we have to pursue, in order to eliminate a nuclear weapon, we have to create, achieve nuclear disarmament. You cannot eliminate all at once. To reduce and lower level, to bring the lower level of arsenal, and then eventually eliminate. And also non-proliferation. So Japan is, and also one of the strong advocate of peaceful use of nuclear energy. So in fact, I was ambassador in Vienna, and I dealt with nuclear issue of Iran and North Korea myself. At the same time, I defended very strongly right of non-nuclear weapon state to go to peaceful use of nuclear energy, including nuclear power station and the radioactive application for medical use and food. All these are very, very important. However, after Fukushima disaster experience, I feel that we should be cautious. That nuclear safety requires not only technology, as you have noticed, high standard of technology like Japan has. What Japan doesn't have a safety culture, defense in depth. This is not hardcore developed very quickly. You need a lot of time to effort. I really don't think that after 10 years, safety culture has increased dramatically in Japan, I'm afraid. Because I was a member of the commission to investigate accident, cause of accident myself. So I'm very disappointed. We recommended the strong safety culture. And this was not possible. This was not realized in Japan. So I should be very, would say, cautious, constructing nuclear power station in country when indigenous safety expertise and culture are less advanced. I'm not arguing that developing countries should not develop a power station if they abandon nuclear weapon. They're entitled to this under NPT. But I'm very cautious. Japan take the flag on this one. Before 2011, I was doing this, but I'm more careful in this now. Little bit related to this is political participation. This is particularly the issue in Japan, but I was very pleased the panel rightly took the view that democracy is more than electing political leaders through free and fair election. It must be accompanied with active public discourse on political issues and political participation by people, particularly younger people. And as mentioned, the democracy index of Japan as a whole, either economic intelligence unit, VDEM or Freedom House, always rank high. Japan is very high. However, in political culture or participation, lower. You see, and particularly I'm concerned about the current trend of indifference, or I would say disinterestedness among many young people in Japan with political issues and even social issues that are taking place around them. So that this hesitancy to do anything which has a political implication is not limited only young people in Japan, other people too. So in the belief that whatever you do, nothing will change. Why you bother? One forms no opinion or discuss with others or not going to poll station. This is the reality. And I'm very much worried about this, what is going to happen in the future. Because it's very different when I was your age. We are very politically motivated, as you may know. Certainly, one person's power is limited. But society will not change, I would say, even unless one makes small step for change. And if it's accumulated, then mountain moves. You cannot wait, mountain moves itself. No, other people will move it. The panel covered rural-urban divide and also gender issue and impact of social media. Although negative part of impact of social media was not discovered, but anyway, and focused on need of citizens' participation. Here, I would say that you recommended the school, education start school, high school. But I would say that's too late. Even if you are political class in high school, it's too late. I would say that education should start much earlier from childhood. Because to express your view, to have view, and the authority will listen to the voice of children. That is the right of children from. I feel strongly that the education on conventional right of children, including the political expression and others, should be universally taught from primary school in Japan. It is not. And I'm personally advocating and practicing in implementing my NGO activity. And I hope you, student, after graduation, keep a strong interest in how society is moving and develop your own opinion and act whatever possible. I'm not urging you to become all politicians, but it's important as a social person, responsible person, your view is anything. So I move on to the urban and planning because it's related to the issue of the political participation. It's interesting to compare the good practices in 3 countries. Nowadays, many governments on national and local level stress their urban planning or town planning, I would say, coordinated through citizen participation. And municipalities, many municipalities are very proud that they're doing this, involving citizens in decision on local issues, including town planning. This is a welcome development. However, in the process, I did research on the Human Security Index of Japan. We made analysis of decision-making process of town planning or development plan by municipalities, city, village, and other things, by number of municipalities in Japan, and found most of the cases, citizens' involvement is not either symbolic or nominal or formalistic. So in this context, a theory of so-called ladders of citizen participation by Dr. Sherry Einstein, this is very well known, the degree of citizen participation. She made 8 steps starting from nominal one to substantive one. This provides a very interesting analytical tool when I listen to your presentation. For instance, from informing citizens, that is one, but it's very, very weak. Consulting, that's again weak. Making partnerships stronger, but not strong enough. And ultimately, real students' involvement should take the form of citizens' control. Means citizens decide, and the city administration follow, including allocation of resources. She argued that the citizen participation frequently end up to provide government's authority a cover to claim that all sides are considered, views are taken into account. But go ahead with the original plan, no change. This is not civil engagement. So it's necessary to go deeper to find out whether citizen is given substantive power and the citizen participation has real impact on the decision. For instance, I'm working with UNICEF, and UNICEF is promoting so-called child-friendly city initiative. There are many thousand cities in the world now. Basically, what we're talking about is child-friendly city means cities should become friendly to children, listen to children, children's viewpoint to reflect their viewpoint in town planning and other things. When city becomes child-friendly, it's automatically become friendly to women. And also it becomes friendly to senior people. So it's very, very important that the child-friendly city initiative will be implemented. Unfortunately, so far in Japan, there are 5 cities. And I'm working very actively to promote this concept. So therefore, this issue related, I think, the first discussion on this political participation by citizens, active participation, meaningful participation. I move on to food security, if I may. This is also interesting because you cover the water-related issue and the gender issue, education, and supply chain. So you cover the food security in some integrated manner, no doubt. But I wished a little bit more broader implications for other pillars, particularly food security is very closely related to security and stability, and also human rights, particularly human rights. For instance, you made a case study in India. And in history in India, particularly Bengal, there has been frequent famines in history. And also country like Ethiopia, there are famines. And Amartya Sen and many other economists studied what is cause of famine. The common sense is that famine is due to lack of food, shortage of food. But he found that it is not. It is not outcome of food. People are dying afterwards. They're not access to the food because lack of accountability and democratic value. No independent freedom. The press is criticizing some hoarding practices of keeping food for speculations and other kind of profit making. There's no accountability, then they can do this. And when there are people dying, but food are available, some storage, but not distributed.
Mr. Takasu, sorry for interrupting. We will pass the 20 minutes. So is that possible to finalize in the 5 minutes?
All right, okay. So
sorry for that. Thank you for active feedback.
All right. So I wanted to make the case of Japan.
Yeah, thank you.
But anyway, hunger and poverty is issue for Japan. Probably foreign student will be surprised here. But from my research, it is a real issue. And I wish the students can focus on that issue as well. It's not an issue of developing country. In Japan, we have a serious issue of poverty and hunger. It's not visible so easily. That's the issue of Japan. Okay, that is one. And these are not the result of lack of self-help effort, but structural problems, such as cycle of poverty and disparity, inequality and discrimination, and distribution of capital labor. So this is the issue, I think, for future study for you. So I think I will finish now in a couple of minutes. And foreign workers. It is good that the panel members made effort to listen directly from technical interns from Thailand, because this is very important, listen directly to find out the difficulties within Japan. And the panel discussed on need to support tools, including communicating in Japanese. But you mentioned about also importance of increasing human contact or human relationship. Machine, others, tools does not replace. This extremely important to increase human contact. Fair potential partnership with various stakeholders is very important, human security approach. So I think in conclusion, I would say that it's important for us to treat every individual with respect. So aim at creating society where everybody could feel that it's worthwhile being born in this world. This is what human security try to achieve. And it's not a difficult thing. You can practice in everyday life. But to do it, not exclude those with different outlook and opinion, including foreign residents. By recognizing and respecting diversity, we could take a small step toward inclusive symbiotic societies. So I really like to pay high regard to every student who made presentation and express my congratulations to their success. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your lecture, Mr. Takasu. We're very grateful and appreciate all of your advice. For the audience, if you have any question for Mr. Takatsu, please respond to the form sent to Zoom chat.
高須様、まずご講演いただき誠にありがとうございました。途中でのお声掛け、大変申し訳ございません。弊団体の研究活動に対するご好評、今後の研究活動につなげてまいりたいと考えています。誠にありがとうございました。高須様へのご質問は、Zoom のチャット欄に送付したアンケートにてお願いいたします。また今後交流の時間も設定しておりますので、もしよろしければぜひご参加ください。ありがとうございます。はい。では本日お二人目のご講演者様に移らせていただきます。お二人目のご講演者様は斉藤浩平様です。まず斉藤浩平様のご略歴の紹介をさせていただきます。
The next guest speaker is Mr. Kohei Saito. He is an associate professor at Graduate School of Economics, Osaka City University. He specialized in economic and social thought. He completed the doctoral program in philosophy from the Humboldt University of Berlin. He's also received the prestigious Deutscher Memorial Prize for his book, Karl Marx, Eco-Socialism, Capital, Nature, and the Unfinished Critique of Political Economy. In 2020, he was awarded the Japan Society for Promotion Science Prize. He is the author of Mirai no Daibunki, a collection of conversations with Marcus Gabriel and others. His best-selling book, Hito-Shinsei-no-Shihonron, won the New Book Award in 2021. Today, Mr. Saito will give a lecture entitled Society in Post-Corona.
斉藤様のご専門は経済思想、社会思想です。ベルリン・フンボルト大学哲学科博士課程を修了されました。大洪水の前にマルクスと惑星の物質代謝にて権威あるドイッチャー記念賞を日本人初、歴代最年少で受賞されました。2020年には日本学術振興会賞を受賞されました。また、マルクス・ガブリエル・シラーとの対談集、未来への大分岐など数々の著書をお持ちです。近年ではベストセラー、人申請の資本論で新書大賞2021を受賞されました。本日、斉藤様には、アフターコロナにおける社会のあり方と題してご講演いただきます。それでは斉藤様、マイクをオンにしていただき、ご講演のほどよろしくお願いいたします。Min, can you stop share screen? Thanks.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kohei Saito. I'm the Associate Professor of Political Economy at Osaka City University. Thank you so much for inviting me for this conference. And today in my guest lecture, I would basically, repeat what Mr. Takasu said, because I really share the importance of creating fair society with human dignity for everyone, etc., etc. But I have a background of Marxian economics, so I'd like to add one thing. If we really want to change, or if we really want to create a fair society, maybe it's high time to rethink about our economic system, which is capitalism. So basically, I'd like to challenge some fundamental basic assumption about our economic system. I have only 20 minutes, so I'm not sure if I can convince you guys, but we can still share. There might be some need to think about this economic system called capitalism. I share my presentation so that you can also follow my discussion better. I slightly modified my title to Envisioning a Fair Society After the Pandemic, but the basic content is the same as originally planned. So I think now we are facing a moment of the Great Reset, if I borrow the expression from the Davos Forum. Basically, this pandemic revealed two major contradictions of our current neoliberal society. So that's why Davos Forum is also arguing for changing fundamentally about our economic system. And there are two problems, basically. One is economic inequality. Even under the pandemic, some people like Bill Gates or Jeff Bezos became even richer. They accumulated more wealth, while many people who can be categorized as an essential worker, they have to risk lives, they have to work, but then they still suffer from the low wages and long work hours, etc. So their working condition is getting worse and worse, while some people are becoming even richer in the middle of the crisis. And the second obvious crisis is the ecological crisis. For example, the deforestation, as some scientists warned, increased the risk of this kind of the pandemic, but we kept cutting trees and destroying the environment. And that's the one reason for this COVID-19. But COVID-19 is not the last crisis. That's the point. It's not like we vaccinated and we are done with this one. It's rather just the beginning of the chronic emergency, because we have more and more of the crisis, and the pandemic is one of them, but the bigger problem is climate crisis or climate breakdown. Because left as it is, the climate breakdown leads to even more severe inequality, food, water insecurity, climate refugees, and even war. So we really need to change something about this climate change, climate breakdown. We have to do something. But the problem is we really need a radical change, because the scientist says that we basically have to keep the global temperature increase within 1.5 degrees Celsius. But this goal requires 50% reduction of CO2 emission by 2030. So in the next 10 years, we have to reduce the carbon emission by half and then reduce to zero, basically, by 2050. So we only have 30 years before the decreasing carbon emission. The problem is that we are really far from achieving this goal. The problem is also the insufficiency of the Paris Agreement. So the recent IPCC report published 2 weeks ago basically said we will most likely pass this 1.5 degrees Celsius in 10 years. So 2030, we will reach this limit. There is still hope, but the time is very limited. So we really have to act now. But the problem is when the existing system, the UN or any other kind of international corporation seems not really working, maybe we really need to think about the possibility that we need some kind of solution from the outside the current system. So that's why people like Greta Thunberg and her supporters from the Fridays for Futures are calling for system change, not climate change. So the system change becomes one of the polemics for our concern. In my book, Das Kapital in Anthropocene, the capital in the Anthropocene, which is currently very popular thanks to the readers, which sold more than 300,000 copies. I began, of course, in a provocative manner. Sorry, Mr. Takasu, the SDGs is the new opium of masses. Karl Marx once said religion is the new opium of masses. And I said SDGs is the new opium of masses today. Not because SDGs are really bad. I certainly respect the ideals, and I want to highlight as much as I can the importance of the SDGs, but the problem is how it is implemented today, especially in Japan. SDGs is popular, like super popular in Japan, and you hear this word every day in the advertisement and then newspapers and everywhere. But the problem is people just using eco bags or water bottles instead of buying plastic bags in the convenience store. That's not changing the system as Greta Thunberg demanded, right? It's just satisfying one's own sense of guilt. They just feel, oh, I did something good for the environment, and they get relievement. But the problem is that obviously the individual choices alone are unable to change this system, but the people are simply satisfied with this very superficial eco-friendly behaviors. On the other side, companies also use SDGs as a new means for selling more product and then making profit. So they use SDGs in order to continue business as usual. That's not making sense, but we need to change the system. But the problem is that current ways of SDGs are just kind of bullshit, basically. So another one, the green capitalism. People are talking about investing more on electric vehicles, EVs, and renewable energies and other things, like many things, like green technologies, etc. But I'm also skeptical about its power. I mean, we need it. We need new technologies. But if those technologies can solve all the problems about climate breakdown, I think the story sounds too good. The reality is much more severe, I guess. One of the problems is that the decoupling of GDP increase, the economic growth, and carbon emission. So we need to keep economy growing, but at the same time, we need to reduce the carbon emission. So we need to decouple them. But this is not taking place on a global scale, despite those new technologies, such as electric vehicles and renewable energies. Because one of the problems is that the economic growth requires even greater energy and resources. So if we want to keep growing economy, we have to have a greater decoupling, greater efficiency, and greater recycling, etc. But that's not a very good option, I think, because we have only 10 years. When we only have 10 years, we should scale down the economy. That's the basic point of the degrowth. I'm advocating for degrowth, basically, because economic growth is incompatible with our aim of zero carbon emission by 2050. Another problem is that Green New Deal or green recovery, so investing more on those new technologies, may strengthen the ecological imperialism. So basically the high income countries will get more lithium, nickel, cobalt, and all the other rare metals. And then they have monopolized over these resources, and that will necessarily create a rising price of those rare earths. So poor countries cannot buy these resources, no matter how much they need, right? So they might end up just being dependent on the fossil fuels, and so that we cannot really achieve the net zero emission by 2050. That's a very severe consequence in the future. So the problem is that for the sake of the greening of capitalism in high-income countries in the global north, there might be more robbery and more environmental destruction in low-income countries. Is it a really greening? But for what sake, right? So we really need to envision a fairer world, no one left behind, as Mr. Takasu said, but that's not the one that is actually happening under the name of Green New Deal or green recovery. So we need a different path. That's the data, that the decoupling is not happening. The green one is the GDP increase. And then we see clearly that the material footprint, the resource use, And then the global greenhouse gas emissions are basically increasing together, right? We cannot really decouple them. And another problem is that high-income countries are basically responsible for this current climate breakdown, but the ones who suffer most are the ones who are least responsible for the crisis. I quote one sentence: Africa is responsible for only 1% of the total historic emissions, yet they will be the ones to suffer the most. That's unfair, right? But then high-income countries are taking more resources from Africa, from Latin America, to green themselves, to greenize, to ecologize themselves, but with the environmental destruction in the global south. That's unfair. That's not SDGs. So what we are suffering most is basically the poverty of imagination. We can only imagine the solutions that are basically not changing our way of life, thanks to technologies. We can have electric vehicles, we can have renewable energies, we can have hydrogen airplanes, etc. Thanks to all these technologies, we can just simply live as we did before, but without carbon emission. That sounds perfect. But the problem is that our previous way of life was causing this crisis. So we have to change the current way of life, but technology functions as a kind of ideology for not facing the reality. Technology tells us that we don't have to change the way of life because they will take care of it. But I'm basically quite skeptical about this possibility. I would rather say pandemic needs to be an opportunity to reflect up on the irrationality of the previous lifestyle and previous mode of production that aims after the endless economic growth up on this finite planet. So we rather need to envision a new fair world and more sustainable. One of the radical reimagination of the future possibility is that, say, lockdown in Europe or lockdown in many Asian countries were actually possible. But who imagined that lockdown was possible before the pandemic? At the very beginning, China did it, and the European people laughed. Oh, it's China, that's why they can do it. But then after a couple months, they did it too. They restricted the right of the meeting, the right of moving around. That was really impressive. Something that people imagined impossible 1 year before was actually possible. So why not again for this climate crisis? Because climate crisis is much more serious challenge to humans and non-humans, of course. So why not putting an emergency brake before the climate breakdown? Why the companies say, or politicians say, no, we cannot do this. We cannot stop the economy. We cannot stop economic growth. But they did it in the pandemic. So we need to think about the possibility again, more planned one, right? Not a chaotic one like this one. But we need to think about challenging this logic of infinite capital accumulation. So basically, I'm arguing for the degrowth against fossil capitalism. Today I'm not saying we need to end capitalism, because that 20 minutes is not enough. But today I can say we need to end fossil capitalism, right? So basically, what I'm advocating for is scaling down the economy, which also accompanies the scaling down its energy use and resource use in high-income countries, right? I'm not saying that Africa should scale down. No, I'm saying America, Europe, and Japan should scale down the economy for the sake of climate justice, because other countries, other low-income countries need more resources and energies and carbon budget for developing more. They are underdeveloped. We are developed too much, one could say. So we should be scaling down so that other people can have a fair share on this planet. And if we end aiming after the infinite economic growth, we should emphasize more sustainability and well-being of human beings. We can also ban SUVs. So when I say scale down the economy, I'm not saying that we should abandon, computers and everything. I'm not saying we should go back to Edo period, for example. I'm saying we should just simply give up what is excessive. For example, SUVs in the cities, we don't need it. We don't really need fast fashion. We need fashion, but we don't need fast fashion. And we also don't need industrial farming. We can also restrict advertisement. That's the growth, right? But we are also exposed to this kind of excessive advertisement, and that's unhealthy. We buy things that are not necessary, and we need to earn money. We have to work harder to satisfy our infinite desires, but it's never ending. So why don't we simply restrict advertisement, and why don't we simply reduce work hours? We can have more free time. But it's meaningless if you just go, shopping malls in our more free time. We also need to have more public spending for libraries, for cultural activities, and for parks, so that we can do some sports and we can have the, cultural art lessons and etc. And we can also have more money for supporting community economy. We don't really need to buy everything from China or India. We can build our own things, right? So that's kind of a way of deglobalizing excessively globalized economy is a key to degrowth society. And how do we finance them? We can definitely tax the rich and their destructive activities, private jet, many sports cars, and the huge houses, and we can also cut the subsidies for fossil fuel industries. And then when we realize that equal societies are more sustainable. Some rich people spend money to go to the space, right? Jeff Bezos, but they are massively wasting our resources. Why doesn't he pay a little more wages to the Amazon workers in the warehouses? So equal societies, they, when the wage are more equally distributed, people spend more money on food, on housing, or education. Those are the totally sustainable activities compared to flying everywhere with private jet, for example. And so what I'm saying is simply just end this excessively unequal society founded upon this fossil fuels. Fossil capitalism is basically characterized by oppression, exploitation, and destruction, and etc. In front of this irreversible crisis of this, namely the climate breakdown, we really need to act now. Our inaction is betrayal to human and non-humans in the future generation. I mean, to you guys, basically. So I feel very responsible for letting this crisis become so grave, but we still have time. So I hope that we can have much more, much more sustainable solution, much more fair solution, so that we can have a fair and equal society. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Mr. Saito. It's very easy to understand. And thank you for providing us the opportunities not only think about the post-COVID economy, but how we should take action in the current era as well. We really appreciate it.
斉藤様、ご講演いただき誠にありがとうございました。20分は短いですよね。すみません。ご講演に関しましては、特にコロナ後の社会の在り方を考えるだけじゃなくて、実装インプリメーションのところまで落とし込んで考える必要があるっていうのはとても 今の若者たちに重要な問いを投げていただいたと考えています。どうもありがとうございました。
For the audience, if you have any question to the guest speakers today, please respond to the questionnaire sent to Zoom chat.
また、ご質問のある方はチャットに送付いたしましたアンケートの方へ回答をお願いいたします。
So this is the end of the guest speaker session. Once again, please send a big round of applause to the guest speakers.
これにてゲストスピーカーセッションを終了いたします。今一度ご講演いただいたお二方へ盛大な拍手をお願いいたします。ありがとうございました。
We would now like to move on to the closing ceremony.
続きまして、閉会式に移ってまいります。ではよろしくお願いいたします。
Thank you very much, Mr. Takasu and Dr. Kohei for the wonderful guest lectures. On behalf of the committee members, next, I would like to now call for the closing of the final forum of the 67th International Student Conference. 高須様、また斉藤浩平様、基調講演のご登壇誠にありがとうございました。それでは次に私の方から第67回国際学生会議成果発表会の閉会宣言をさせていただきます。Thank you very much for joining us. I hope ISC67 was a valuable opportunity for all of us to exchange ideas and think deeply about what we can do as youths who shape the future of the world. 本日は皆様ご来場いただき誠にありがとうございました。この成果発表会を通して第67回国際学生会議の参加学生の努力を肌で感じていただき、国際平和への実現について改めて考える一助となりましたら幸いでございます。I hope that even after the conference is over, all of our participants will continue to carry on the ISC spirit and pass on the torch of inspiration to the future generations of the world. Once again, thank you so much for being a part of this big family and for making ISC67 an experience of a lifetime together. 参加者の皆さんには本会議及び成果発表会が終わった後も ISC の精神の灯火を絶やさぬよう、この夏の経験のことを次世代の若者にも伝えてくれることを願っています。改めて ISC ファミリーというこの大きな家族の一員となっていただき、そして ISC67 を共に一生の思い出にしていただき、本当にありがとうございました。皆さんの今後のご活躍を心よりお祈り申し上げます。Furthermore, I would like to extend my sincere gratitude to all of the guests who joined today and to the sponsors who supported us all along despite the difficult circumstances this year. We hope that all of you will continue to support our activities in the future as well. 改めまして、本日は皆様ご来場いただきまして誠にありがとうございました。また、この場を借りてご支援、またご協力いただきました皆様に深く感謝を申し上げます。今後とも国際学生会議の、活動をどうか温かく見守っていただけましたら幸いでございます。Lastly, I hope that the pandemic will be away soon and that we could all meet in person one day. We wish that you and your beloved ones are all safe from the ongoing pandemic. 最後となりますが、新型コロナウイルスの感染拡大が収まり、いつか皆様に直接お会いできることを願っております。一日も早く穏やかな日々が戻ってきますように、皆様のご健康を心よりお祈り申し上げます。また、猛暑も続いておりますので、皆様におかれましては、体調を崩されませんようご自愛くださいませ。Before we officially close today's final forum, there are a few announcements from Komatsu, the Vice President. また、閉会の前に、副代表、小松の方からいくつかのご案内がございます。小松君、よろしくお願いします。
Thank you very much for all. So we would like to hear your feedback so that we can improve the quality of our future activities. A questionnaire for today's event will be distributed in the Zoom chat. So we would appreciate it if you could take a moment to answer it. ミン君ありがとうございます。今後の活動の質を向上させるために皆様のご意見をお聞きしたいと思います。Zoom のチャットにて本日の成果発表会の事後アンケートを配布いたしました。何卒ご回答いただきますようよろしくお願い申し上げます。In addition, the term of the 67th International Student Conference will end with this event. Therefore, we will hold the information session to recruit committee members for the next 68th International Student Conference. I will send the detail to the Zoom chat. また本日のイベントの後、第67回国際学生会議の運営メンバーは任期を終了する予定です。そこで弊団体では今後、次期第68回国際学生会議の運営メンバー向けの説明会を行う予定です。 詳しい詳細に関しましては、チャットの方にお送りさせていただきましたので、ご確認のほどよろしくお願いいたします。We will upload the information about session by our social media. We would like to appreciate it to share with your friend. 説明会の詳しい説明は、弊団体のソーシャルメディア等で情報を更新する予定ですので、ご知り合いでご興味をお持ちの方がいらっしゃいましたら、ご周知いただけますと幸いです。Okay, so let's move to the... Yeah, Minfa, could you kindly take the screenshot? Please kindly note that the picture will be uploaded onto our social media. If you do not wish to show your face, please feel free to turn camera off. ただいまより写真撮影の方に移らせていただきます。写真は弊団体のソーシャルメディアにて使用する予定となっております。写真に写るのが難しいという方はカメラをオフにしていただいても構いません。では準備の方よろしくお願いいたします。So Minfa, please take a look. Take initiative to take screenshot and wait for 30 seconds to prepare everyone.
Yes, thank you, Koma, for the announcements. And we will be taking the screenshot several times as we have multiple pages with a lot of participants to this event. So I will be taking the screenshot on the count of 3. So, okay. Okay, so I will take the screenshot now. Okay, so 1, 2, 3. And the second page, okay, 1, 2, 3. Yes, this is all it. Thank you.
ありがとうございます。So I'll back the mic to Ron.
Thank you very much.
はい、写真撮影ありがとうございました。
This is the end of the 67 International Student Conference Final Forum.
はい、本日は長引いて、大変申し訳ございませんでした。以上をもちまして、第67回国際学生会議の成果発表会を閉会いたします。
We will soon open the interaction session. The audience is welcome to come and ask any of the table questions concerning their presentation or give any comments.
はい、この後、自由歓談の時間を予定しております。こちらの交流会ではご来場いただきました皆様にご興味のあるテーブルに足をお運びいただき、学生たちと交流を深めていただけます。プレゼンテーションに対するご質問やご意見などもご自由にお寄せくださいませ。
Thank you very much once again for the audience, for the attendance. We're looking forward to seeing you again.
はい、お帰りになられる方はお気をつけてお帰りください。改めまして、本日は誠にありがとうございました。